Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to subscribe, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, the series starts with our MC, Mao. Hearing her father call out to her, asking Mao to deliver some medicine to the Verdigris house, but to be careful of kidnappers. As Mao heads into town, we see a gorgeous woman, Perrin, renowned as one of the 3 famous princesses of the Verdigris houses, catch the attention of all the men in town. Having dropped off the medicine at the Verdigris house, Mao begins writing up some notes on her most recent experiment, but is interrupted by Perrin, worried that Mao's experiments are harming her. Just then, the granny of the Verdigris house greets Mao, reminding Mao to not perform any risky experiments, wondering if Mao would like to service people and earn a little bit of cash as a courtesan. Not wanting any part of the offer, Mao swiftly leaves, telling Granny that she had left her medicine, but right as Mao leaves, the other 2 princesses appear, sad to not see Mao. As Mao heads home, she passes by herb field, ecstatic to be collecting such luscious herbs, but suddenly is interrupted by some thieves. Kidnapped and taken away, Mao gets worried that her father will be stressed about her disappearance, but at the same time, we see a blue-haired lady, Lady Lahua, give birth to a boy, and a red-haired lady, Lady Gyokuyu, give birth to a girl, both at the same time. As 3 months pass by, we follow Mao, now working in the rear of the emperor's palace, where women are raised with the intention of giving birth to the emperor's children. The rear palace forbids any ordinary men, only allowing relatives of the emperor or eunuchs, male workers that have lost limbs and are unable to work normal jobs. The overall location houses 2,000 concubines and servants combined along with 1,000 eunuchs, but Mao knows that since she is a serving girl, her life is expendable. Mao also notes how there are shut-in concubines, but Mao can't really complain about her current job, as she at least gets paid. Running into a fellow service girl, Xiaolon, Mao helps guide Xiaolon to her delivery location, sad to see that girls are taught the bare minimum to work here, knowing that even servants like her have the opportunity to become low-ranking concubines, but due to her childlike body, Mao brushes that thought aside. That evening, Mao chats with Xiaolon, learning that there have been rumors of a very handsome eunuch that had been spotted in the rear palace. That night, we see a very handsome man, Jinshi, checking up on Lady Lahua and Lady Gyokuyu. Sad to see that Lady Lahua is losing weight and growing ill, but is also terrified that both ladies' children are mysteriously falling ill. The next day, Xiaolon reveals to Mao that there have been rumors of a curse plaguing the rear palace, as all 3 of the emperor's children have mysteriously passed away. Apparently, this curse is also occurring to the blue-haired lady, Lady Lahua, and the red-haired lady, Lady Gyokuyu as well. Mao states that since Lady Lahua gave birth to a boy, she would be considered the empress consort and the higher ranking of the 2 women, but there are rumors that the emperor favors Lady Gyokuyu, meaning a power struggle is inevitable. Whilst eating, Mao also hears Xiaolon mention how Lady Lahua is getting sick as well, exhibiting symptoms of headache, stomachache and nausea. Having worked as an apothecary back in her village, Mao begins deducing possible causes that may have led to the symptoms, suspecting that someone must have poisoned Lady Lahua, but rules that thought out after some more thinking. Wondering if the cause is something passed down hereditarily, Mao wonders why she cares so much about rumors, but cheekily remarks that she should at least go and see if the rumors are true. Upon entering a more high-ranking area of the palace, Mao spots a crowd forming around the malnourished Lahua, who is accusing Gyokuyu of cursing her child. Not wanting things to get out of hand, Jinshi is called to stop the fight, but as Mao gets a closer look at Lahua, she manages to pinpoint the cause of this supposed curse, passing by Jinshi as Mao wonders how she can help without exposing herself. Choosing to tie a note onto a mysterious flower, Mao's message is ultimately ignored, leading to Lady Liwa's boy sadly passing away. Cutting to Gyokuyu, she is seen having a private meeting with Jinshi, revealing that she had received a mysterious message a while ago, telling everyone that the rhododendron flower that the message was tied to had a white part that was poisonous. Sadly, the palace physicians had ignored the message, but Gyokuyu would like to know who was the genius that gave them the message, asking Jinshi to track down the genius. Having suspicions of who this person could be, we cut to Xiaolon and Mao on their break, gossiping about any new updates regarding the emperor, but suddenly one of the eunuchs asks for the girls to head to a part of the palace. Upon entering the assigned room, Jinshi appears, greeting the girls and introducing himself as the manager of the rear palace. Without saying another word, Jinshi writes a message on a piece of paper, asking only girls with freckles to remain in the room. Afterwards, Jinshi asks everyone to leave, shocking Mao, as she realizes she was the only one that can read, meaning Jinshi has found his target. Asking Mao to come quietly, Jinshi and Mao begin heading through the palace, with Jinshi revealing that he had looked into Mao, and records said Mao couldn't read, but wanting to not stand out, Mao feigns ignorance. As they enter a different part of the palace, Mao prays that she doesn't get punished for anything, but upon entering Gyokuyu's room, Mao shows relief, seeing Gyokuyu's daughter, Xiaoling, is alive and healthy. Not wanting to take credit for saving Gyokuyu's Xiaoling's life, Mao tries to feign ignorance once again, but Jinshi pulls out the message received a while ago, stating that he knows the cloth used to write it was most likely from the skirt from a girl working with clothes. With no other reason to hide, Mao reveals that she had figured out that the white powder concubines used to appear paler as poisonous, having seen various women in her village continue to use the white powder, but at the cost of their lives. Mao also adds that she was able to identify the poison, due to being an apothecary, having knowledge in medicine overall. Hearing this, Gyokuyu states that a while ago, she was given the same white powder, but upon discovering that her child along with the nurse that provided the white powder was getting ill, Gyokuyu had stopped using it entirely, ultimately sparing her baby's life. Apparently, Gyokuyu had tried to warn Lahua about the white powder, but Lahua wouldn't listen. Fearing what is to come next, Mao asks what Gyokuyu plans to do with her, but with a cheerful smile, Gyokuyu states that Mao from today will be Gyokuyu's lady-in-waiting, just like an assistant. As Mao walks through the rear palace, Mao wonders if her being discovered is a good or bad thing, but at the same time, we see several soldiers suddenly collapse, suspecting that they've been poisoned. Seeing their men get poisoned, the leader of the soldiers accused the village leader for assisting the enemies, but just then we cut back to Jinshi, who has just learned of poisoning to their soldiers. Changing topics for a bit, one of the eunuchs asks Jinshi about Gyokuyu's new attendant, but Jinshi states that compared to Liwa's 10 attendants, Gyokuyu only has 4. But Jinshi reiterates that Gyokuyu is quite smart, only choosing attendants that she can trust, which explains why Mao is a candidate, as her knowledge of medicine is too valuable. Hearing the eunuch fear that Mao may abuse her new positions as Gyokuyu's attendant, Jinshi reasons that he should seduce Mao a bit. The next morning, Mao is seen packed up, chatting to Xiaolong, as she begins making her way to the Jade Pavilion, where Gyokuyu lives. Just then, Mao spots Jinshi flirting with several women, only to turn to greet Mao, following up by grazing Mao's hair in an attempt to seduce her, but this only weirds Mao out. Upon arriving at the Jade Pavilion, Mao is greeted by Hongyang, the head lady in waiting for Gyokuyu, who offers to show Mao around the Jade Pavilion. First visiting Gyokuyu, who warmly welcomes Mao to her new home, remarking that her child Xiaoling also is happy to see her. Next, Hongyang shows Mao the guest waiting room, the kitchen and living room where all the ladies in waiting are cleaning. Introducing themselves as Yinghua, Gaiyuan, Ailan, but when Mao introduces herself, all the girls notice Mao's wrapped-up arm. Hongyang states that there are no service girls in the Jade Pavilion, meaning that the 5 of them will have to do all of the work around here, but when Mao offers to help them clean up, the ladies stop Mao asking that she rest up for now, alluding to a special job that Mao will have to do later on. As Mao leaves, 3 of the girls begin speculating on Mao's tragic past, collectively shedding a tear for Mao. Showing Mao to her room, Hongyang instructs Mao to rest until she is summoned. Amazed at the spacious room, Mao is amazed at the promotion, knowing that only elites are normally hired to attend to such royals. That evening, it's revealed that Mao's special role is poison tasting, but Mao can't help but get excited at tasting such luxurious food. Jinshi reveals it is a serious role as when Gyokuyu was pregnant, people had tried to poison her twice, with the food tester being paralyzed after tasting the poisoned food. Starting with the first dish, Mao checks for any distinct marks or scents, only to finally taste the food, noting no numbness and concluding that the first dish is fine. As Mao makes her way through other dishes, Mao thinks about how she would run various experiments using poison when she lived with her father, meaning that she has grown immune to most poisons. That night, Mao advises Gyukuyu to switch the ceramic dishes for silver, as silver will react with most poisons. Amazed, Gyukuyu reveals that they had purposely used ceramic dishes to test Mao's logic, wondering why Mao doesn't reveal that she can read, write and has knowledge in medicine and poisons. Mao states that her kidnappers take most of the money she makes, intriguing Gyukuyu as she knows Mao doesn't want to give the kidnappers any more money. Turning to Mao, Gyukuyu hands Mao a large teapot, dropping it before Mao can grab a hold of it, only to wink at Mao as Gyukuyu states that she'll have to deduct damages out of her normal pay, but since she helped with poison testing earlier, Gyukuyu hands Mao a payment equal to her regular salary, that can't be touched by the kidnappers, impressing Mao as it's a loophole that Gyukuyu is using to help her. The next day, Mao is told to once again rest, only called to test meals that may be poisoned, but easily gets bored. Just then, Mao is called by Gyukuyu and Jinshi, who once again tries to seduce Mao, but no luck. Showing Mao a case of Baozi buns, Jinshi asks for Mao to check the authenticity of the food, but upon smelling the buns, Mao detects an aphrodisiac in the food. Amazed, Jinshi admits that he knew of the aphrodisiac in the food, which weirds Mao out, believing that Jinshi wanted her to eat it, making Gyukuyu laugh. Getting serious, Jinshi reveals that a group of soldiers had reported being poisoned not so long ago, exhibiting signs of nausea, difficulty breathing and other ailments. Due to suspicions, the soldiers had planned to punish the head of the village, but luckily one of the officers convinced otherwise, putting the punishment on hold. Asking if the soldiers ate outside, Mao realizes the cause of the issue, heading to a nearby rhododendron flower to explain. Chewing on one of the flower petals, Mao states that the flower gives the same symptoms listed, but in some cases, wood from trees can cause the same symptoms when burnt, making Jinshi realize that the soldiers did indeed use wood to start a fire. Relieved that the soldiers didn't harm the innocent villagers, Jinshi wonders if Mao can make him an aphrodisiac. Hearing this, Mao gets excited, knowing that she'll finally get to experiment with making various drugs, replying that she can try given the proper equipment. That night as Jinshi returns to his office, a random concubine attempts to seduce Jinshi, but Jinshi blatantly rejects her offer. Chatting with an eunuch, Jinshi reveals that he has been stationed here by the emperor, to test the loyalty of his concubines, but it's sad to see that most concubines end up betraying the emperor's trust. As Jinshi thinks about Mao, he admits that Mao is the only girl that is not attracted to him, making Jinshi curious as to what may convince her otherwise. The next morning, Mao visits the quack doctor, running into Gaoshin, Jinshi's assistant. As the quack doctor judges Mao for being a mere servant, Gaoshin guides Mao to a storage room, overwhelming Mao as she gets to experiment with all sorts of materials. As Mao is gleefully dancing, Jinshi interrupts, forcing Mao to get to work. As Mao begins writing up some things, she's amazed at how much paper she gets to use, pleased that Gaoshin is a quick learner compared to Jinshi who's standing idly by. Upon checking to see if there is enough cacao, Mao is disappointed to see a lack in supply, but Jinshi reassures Mao that he can easily obtain more. Back at the Jade Pavilion, Mao has gathered milk, butter, sugar, honey and powdered cacao, intriguing the other girls, as those are all expensive ingredients. As Hongyang orders the other girls to stop slacking, we see Mao finally begin to craft the aphrodisiac, stating that she had tasted cacao only once in the past, in the form of chocolate, which is considered an aphrodisiac. With everything mixed, Mao leaves the concoction to harden, but Mao also gets the idea of turning the leftovers into brownies, setting them on a shelf as she cleans up the mess. As Mao passes through the courtyard, she suddenly spots various herbs growing on the field, distracted by the various herbs, only to rush back to the kitchen where she sees everyone waiting for her. Apparently, the three girls had snacked on the brownies, and are now too exhausted to work. Presenting her chocolate and brownies to Gyukuyu and Jinshi, Mao warns that the aphrodisiacs are quite potent, and that they are 3 times as effective as most stimulants. As Gyukuyu leaves, she remarks that Mao is not knowledgeable with medicine but also can make drugs. With Jinshi and Ma Mao alone, Jinshi kisses Ma Mao on the back of her neck, only to leave. That night, we follow a lady walking through the palace, only to spot a mysterious figure high up on the palace walls, malnourished and pale. Cutting back to earlier, we see Jinshi talking with Lady Fuyu, but their conversation ends with Fuyu storming out. That night, a lady is seen dressed in all white, approaching another lady, terrifying the innocent bystander. The next morning, we follow Gyukuyu's 3 attendants chatting about their lives before serving Gyokuyu, even discussing how trade between western and central capitals is due to Gyukuyu influencing the emperor. The ladies also mention how stressful it was when Gyukuyu was pregnant, as many people were against a princess from a foreign land, giving birth to a child of the emperor. Following Ma Mao, we see Yingua check up on her, impressed that Ma Mao even knows how to make cold medicine. Upon seeing Ma Mao's wrapped up arm, Yingua checks to see if Ma Mao needs any help, reminding Ma Mao that she can vent to her if she needs. Changing topics, Yingua asks if Ma Mao is aware of a spirit haunting the rear palace, intriguing Ma Mao as she asks Xiaolan about the rumor. Xiaolan states that the ghost lady was sighted a few weeks back, only appearing at night near the Easter castle walls. Ma Mao notes how there are gates on the north, south, east and west of the palace, but each gate is heavily guarded and surrounded by a moat. Xiaolan states that the corpse of the ghost lady supposedly exists at the very bottom of the moat, but Ma Mao notes how that is simply a cliché of all ghost stories. Visiting the quack doctor, Ma Mao is amazed that the doctor is now treating her like a normal human being, ever since discovering that she is knowledgeable in medicine as well. When the quack doctor attempts to serve Ma Mao snacks and tea, they are suddenly interrupted by Jinshi, who asks to join them. As Jinshi sits beside Ma Mao wonders what Jinshi's role in the palace is, thinking dirty thoughts, only to be brought back to reality. As the doctor returns with tea and snacks, Jinshi sends the doctor away to search for items, leaving Jinshi alone with Ma Mao once again. Now alone, Jinshi asks Ma Mao about the ghost girl rumor, catching Ma Mao's intentions when Jinshi mentions sleepwalking. Moving in close, Jinshi asks if Ma Mao can cure sleepwalking, but when Ma Mao states that she doesn't know how, Jinshi annoys Ma Mao until she agrees to give the problem a go. That night, Gaoshan guides Ma Mao to the eastern palace walls, but on the way asks if Ma Mao can stop glaring at Jinshi as if he were an insect. Shocked to see that Gaoshan knows of her disgust for Jinshi, but Gaoshan reveals that Jinshi tends to fantasize about Ma Mao when he's in his office. As they make it to the eastern wall, Ma Mao is captivated by Lady Fuyu, who is dressed in all white, marvelously dancing in front of the moon. The next morning, Ma Mao speaks with the quack doctor, learning that Fuyu was supposed to serve the emperor, but when she had failed to perform in front of the emperor, she chose to shut herself away from the world, ultimately scheduled to be a reward for a military officer. Knowing that she needs more information to cure Fuyu's supposed sleepwalking, Ma Mao asks for directions to Fuyu's room, but before Ma Mao leaves, she learns that Fuyu is from a poor country, which the quack doctor believes that Fuyu doesn't want to go back to. As Ma Mao and Gaoshan spy on Fuyu, Ma Mao is surprised to see Fuyu so timid, reminding her of the Fuyu cotton rose, a flower that remains white during the day, but turns deep pink during night. Returning to Xiaolan to ask for any more details, Ma Mao learns that the ghost lady had originally been spotted on the north side of the palace, but has since moved to the east. Believing that she has found the solution, she wonders if she should operate on solely speculations, but still chooses to present her findings to Gyukuyu and Jinshi. Ma Mao starts by recounting a tale of a concubine that lived in the town near her village, being a cheerful and skilled poet at first, but upon learning that she would be bought, had purposely acted demonic to avoid being bought. Additionally, Ma Mao adds that the person attempting to purchase the lady was a wealthy merchant that had a wife and kid. Hearing this, Gyukuyu wonders if Fuyu was the same, but Jinshi smirks, asking if Ma Mao is telling them everything she knows. With nothing else to add, Ma Mao states that since that day, Fuyu had been forbidden to leave her room, but Ma Mao hopes that everything works out. As days pass by, people start noticing Ma Mao more quiet than usual, leading all the way until the day of Fuyu's departure with her assigned military officer. Having a private chat with Ma Mao, Gyukuyu asks for Ma Mao's true answer to Fuyu's sleepwalking, convincing Ma Mao to reveal the rest of her solution. Apparently, Ma Mao believes that the military officer and Fuyu are childhood friends, having heard reports of the military officer insisting on Fuyu as his reward. Ma Mao hypothesizes that Lady Fuyu had purposely failed at her dance performance in front of the emperor, to avoid any attention. Next, Fuyu had faked her sleepwalking symptoms, as a way to devalue herself as a woman and give people reasons to get her out of the palace. Finally, Lady Fuyu's dance on the Easter Palace walls was most likely her way of praying for her military childhood friend to return safely from the eastern battlefields. As Fuyu leaves the palace, she shows her relief to finally reunite with her childhood friend, showing that Ma Mao's deductions were spot on. That evening, Ma Mao is seen wondering what it must be like to fall in love, but at the same time, Gaoshan asks Gyukuyu a favor involving Ma Mao. Cutting to Ma Mao, we see several of Liwa's ladies in waiting scolding Ma Mao, having pushed Ma Mao down, and begun berating Ma Mao for trying to feed Lihua such disgusting food. Flashing back, we see that the emperor is visiting Gyukuyu, having Ma Mao taste the food for poison. But before Ma Mao can leave, after confirming that the food is not poisoned, she's surprised to see the emperor personally ask for a favor. Apparently, the emperor had asked for Ma Mao to solve and cure the Lihua, as Lihua is acting strange, and since it's a request directly from the emperor, Ma Mao has no reason to refuse. Cutting back to the present, Ma Mao begins cleaning up the spilled food she had made for Lihua, only to be kicked out by Liwa's lady-in-waiting. Having lunch with Xiaolon, Ma Mao tells Xiaolon about Liwa's sick state, reasoning that the white powder must still be running through her body, but luckily the white powder along with the flour that it has come from has been banned from the rear palace. Xiaolon is amazed that Ma Mao was personally asked by the emperor to cure his concubine, but Ma Mao notes how strange it is that the emperor is asking her instead of the quack doctor, finishing up her meal, only to head to the kitchen. Knowing that she needs to expel the existing poison from Liwa's body, Ma Mao decides to create a better-looking porridge, but gets refused and kicked out by Liwa's lady-in-waiting. Trying once again, Ma Mao has no luck, but catches a glimpse of Liwa's normal prestigious meal, noting how the food may be delicious, but it's way too heavy for a sick person to be eating. As Ma Mao is kicked out, we see Jinshi off to the side observing her, watching as Ma Mao continues to try and serve Lihua, but her ladies-in-waiting continue to refuse Ma Mao's help. One day as Ma Mao tries to bring food to Lihua, Jinshi appears, asking if Ma Mao needs any help, but seeing Ma Mao defeated, Jinshi charms Liwa's lady-in-waiting, allowing Ma Mao to finally serve Lihua a porridge. Slowly feeding Lihua the porridge, Ma Mao is happy to see that Lihua can still digest food on her own, but as Ma Mao wipes a stain from Liwa's face, she realizes that Lihua is covered in a white powder, similar to the poisonous one that had been banned. Getting serious, Ma Mao walks to the leader of the ladies-in-waiting, demanding to know who was in charge of applying the white powder to Lihua. When one of the leaders steps up, remarking that she was the one, Ma Mao slaps the lady to the ground, dragging her towards the draw, where she finds the poisonous powder. Dumping the powder on the lady, Ma Mao reiterates that the powder is poison, and that the lady's cocky know-it-all attitude is causing Lihua to slowly die. As Ma Mao orders Liwa's ladies-in-waiting to clean up the white powder, Jinshi can't help but admire Ma Mao's serious sudden tone, which Ma Mao quickly corrects. Getting to work, Ma Mao diluted her porridge, as Lihua is in worse condition than she thought. Next, Ma Mao opened up windows, to allow ventilation, as the incense set up by the Liwa's ladies were simply making it hard for Lihua to breathe. Ma Mao also orders Liwa's ladies to help wipe down and clean Lihua, only for Ma Mao to hydrate Lihua with tea to help flush out any toxins within Liwa's body. With Ma Mao spending more time taking care of Lihua, Lihua started to recover, allowing Ma Mao to begin adding fruits to the meal. As Ma Mao continues to take care of Lihua, it's revealed that the leader of the ladies in the meeting was punished and confined, having hid the poisonous powder from everyone. Checking up on Ma Mao, Janishi unveils a little treat for Ma Mao, who pleasantly accepts the gift, munching on the meal, but knows that the gift was from Gaoshan. Jinshi asks Ma Mao if they can help with Liwa's recovery, prompting Ma Mao to ask Jinshi to begin constructing a steam bath, stating that sweating will help Lihua as well. Returning to Liwa's side, Ma Mao suddenly hears Lihua speaking, leaning in close to hear Lihua ask why Ma Mao is helping her, stating that she doesn't want to live. Mao reveals that she knows Lahua doesn't want to die, prompting Lahua to agree, as she thinks about the memories she had with her baby. With days passing by, we see Mao help fuel the steam bath, where Lahua is instructed to sit in. Afterwards, Lahua is taken to her room cleaned off and fed, only for Liwa's ladies to help Mao clean off and dry Liwa's dirty sheets. That evening, the leader of Liwa's ladies had returned from confinement, declaring that she'll be taking over Liwa's recovery and promising to never mess up again. Hesitant to speak to Lahua, the leader of the ladies is relieved, seeing how much Lahua has recovered. With 2 months passing, Mao is happy to report that Lahua is recovering well, even able to wander the palace gardens all by herself. Seeing Lahua admire the garden's flowers, Mao admits that she thought Lahua would be arrogant and rude after the loss of her child, but it seems as if Lahua has accepted the loss, making Mao realize how pleasant of a lady Lahua truly is. As Mao rests for the day, we see Lahua sit by her side, silently thanking Mao for her help. With Mao's final day attending to Lahua, Mao reports that she has told Liwa's ladies in waiting how to proceed with Liwa's diet, pleasing Lahua. Before Mao leaves, Lahua asks Mao if she's capable of having another child, believing that the emperor no longer loves her, but Mao reveals that she was personally sent here by the emperor to make sure Lahua lives. Seeing Lahua still worried she'll lose the emperor to Gyokuyu, Mao reminds Lahua that she has assets that exceed Gyokuyu, whispering a technique that Lahua can perform that may impress the emperor in bed. As Mao leaves, she reveals that she had learned the technique from the ladies from her village when she was younger. Finally arriving back at the Jade Pavilion, Gyokuyu and the other ladies are glad to see Mao back, but that night, we cut to several men tossing trash into a fire. Out of nowhere, the fire erupts, changing into different colors that end up burning one of the men, who believes that he's been cursed. Sitting down and observing his wounds, the man begins to break down, terrified of the curse, but just then we cut to Jinshi on his morning training. Able to out-trade Basin, Jinshi commends his fellow eunuch, as Basin has greatly improved his swordplay. Getting cleaned off, Jinshi asks Gaoshan about Mao, happy to hear that Mao is recovering well, ever since returning to the Jade Pavilion. Cutting to Mao, we see her digging through a garden, ecstatic to finally find some rare mushrooms, wondering where she should hide them. Just then, Mao remembers that she has something to do, heading over to deliver Xiaolon some spare meals that Mao was gifted. Sparking up a conversation, Xiaolon asks if Mao had heard of a palace servant seducing a military officer, revealing that the servant had used an aphrodisiac, reminding Mao of the chocolates she had created. Heading over to the quack doctor, Mao reveals the matsutake mushrooms she's dug up, exciting the quack doctor. As they both start grilling the mushrooms, they both secretly enjoy the delectable taste of the mushrooms, but just then, a man barges into the room asking if the quack doctor can cure his curse. Inspecting the man's burnt hands, Mao offers to make an ointment for the burns, all whilst the man recounts what happened. The man says that 2 nights ago, he was burning trash by the east side of the palace as he normally would, only to stumble onto a discarded women's dress that had both sleeves burnt off and several wooden tablets. Knowing that he shouldn't waste time, the man simply tossed the dress and tablets into the fire, but out of nowhere, the fire began changing colors, and next thing he knew his hands were burnt. Seeing the man in utter shock, Mao takes out a stick, lighting it on fire, only to sprinkle chemicals to make the flame change color. When the man confirms that the color of the flames were the exact same, Mao states that chemicals are similar to what they use for fireworks, and as for the marks on the man's hand, Mao reasons it's probably due to the man growing a rash from the wood. As Mao hands the man an ointment, the man expresses his gratitude, but just then Jinshi appears, prompting the quack doctor to leave and prepare tea for Jinshi. Seeing such a happy smile on Jinshi's face, Mao gets annoyed, asking what Jinshi wants, but Jinshi gets serious asking Mao to come with him. Setting up chemicals in front of Mao, Jinshi asks Mao how many colors he can make with the chemicals and how to apply them. Mao states she's not too sure, but she knows some chemicals can be dissolved in oil and some in water. Before Mao can leave, Jinshi asks for the chemicals to be teapot steamed, shocking Mao, as Jinshi had found out she was hiding something. As Mao leaves, Jinshi orders Gaoshan to find everyone that had suffered rashes from holding wooden tablets, but Ma Mao knows that the wooden tablets were most likely used to decode a secret message. Heading back to the Jade Pavilion, Ma Mao wonders why everyone is in a rush, forced to try on a dress, only to learn that twice a year a garden party is held for the emperor and the high officials. On top of the emperor, his 4 upper-ranking concubines, the prestigious consort, Gyokyu, the wise consort, Lahua, the virtuous consort, Li Shu, and the pure consort Ah Duo. Hongyang states that last time, Lahua and Gyokyu couldn't attend due to giving birth, but this time, Gyokyu will be showing off her child, Princess Lingli, for the first time. Knowing that she can't skip out on attending, knowing that she'll have to help taste Gyokuyu's food, Ma Mao asks for Hongnang's help getting ready for the party. Hongnyan states that they'll have to pad up Ma Mao a bit, remove her freckles and apply makeup. With Ma Mao dreading having to smile at the high-ranking officials and stand in the cold wind, Ma Mao gets an idea, rushing to prepare things. That night, Hongnyan checks up on Ma Mao, seeing that Ma Mao has cooked up some orange and ginger snacks to help warm up the guests. When Ma Mao shows off an additional layer she sewed onto her dress to keep hand warmers, Hongnyan begs Ma Mao to do the same for the other girls. Ma Mao immediately gets to work. As word spread of Ma Mao's pocket warmer trick and orange snack, Jinshi and Gaoshan ended up visiting, along with the emperor's seamstress and cook, asking to learn Ma Mao's techniques. With several days going by, Ma Mao rushes to prepare and learn everything needed for the garden party, managing to finish preparations the day before, but at the same time, Gaoshan reports that he hasn't been able to track down any other victims that have been received burnt marks like the cursed man. With the big day arriving, Ma Mao and the ladies all gather around Gyokyu, stunned at Gyokuyu's crimson beauty. As a token of appreciation, Gyokyu lends a piece of jewelry to each of her ladies in waiting, reminding Ma Mao that she is now part of her family. Just then, the ladies grab hold of Ma Mao, beginning to transform Ma Mao into a true woman, but as one of the ladies cleans off Ma Mao's face, they all stop and gather around Ma Mao's face. With all 4 princesses entering the assigned area, we see Jinshi greeting all the princesses, managing to charm Li Shu, heading to greet Gyokyu last. As Jinshi greets Gyokyu, he notes how Gyokuyu's crimson outfit and her jade eyes complement each other. But spotting Ma Mao to the side, Jinshi attempts to tease her a bit, but is stunned to see Ma Mao's gorgeous face. Having not recognized her, Jinshi compliments Ma Mao for applying makeup and removing her freckles, but Ma Mao reveals that she never had freckles to begin with. Finding it strange that Ma Mao would fake her freckles, Jinshi is shocked to learn that back in Ma Mao's village, men would prey on any women they can. But by faking freckles, Ma Mao would never be attacked or assaulted due to her ugly looks and childlike figure. Additionally, Jinshi learns that Ma Mao was kidnapped from her village, apologizing for something so sad to happen to such a talent like Ma Mao. Ma Mao states that it isn't Jinshi's fault, but Jinshi pulls Ma Mao close, giving Ma Mao his hairpin, only to leave. As other ladies voice their jealousy at Ma Mao, Gyokyu approaches Ma Mao, uttering that Ma Mao no longer belongs to a single person. Before Ma Mao can learn what that means, the garden party begins, overwhelming Ma Mao as the sheer scale of the party is unimaginable. But at the same time as the food for the guest is served, we cut to an ominous silhouette. As the garden party unfolds, we cut to Ma Mao and the other ladies all clinging to each other as the cold wind brushes past them. Peeking through the curtains, Ma Mao notes how the arrangement of the 4 concubines encourages rivalry. Looking around, Ma Mao spots Empress Dowager, having given birth to the emperor and the emperor's younger brother at a very young age. Sadly, the emperor's younger brother couldn't make the party, supposedly being too sick to leave the house. Just then, Ma Mao overhears some of the leader Liwa's ladies making fun of her friends, watching as Yingua gets more and more angry. Ma Mao thinks back on when she was taking care of Lahua. Ma Mao was easily able to scare Liwa's attendants, but seeing Liwa's attendants making fun of her friends, Ma Mao reminds Liwa's attendants of what she can do to them, scaring them off. As Ma Mao reminds her friends that she needs to change their hand warmers, the Gyokuyu's ladies can't help but admire Ma Mao, always being so nice even after having such a tragic past. Just then, Ah Duo's attendants and Li Shu's attendants begin to bicker, which Ma Mao learns that consort Li Shu is only 14 and Ah Duo is already 35, being the oldest of the 4 consorts. Additionally, Li Shu used to be the daughter-in-law of Ah Duo, as Ah Duo used to be a concubine of the previous emperor, whilst Li Shu was a concubine of the current. But since the previous emperor passed away 5 years ago, Ah Duo became a concubine of the current emperor. Amazed that Li Shu was only 9 to be a concubine, Ma Mao realized she was mistaken, as Li Shu was in fact Ah Duo's mother-in-law. As Hongnian passes Gyokuyu's child to Ma Mao, they both notice Li Shu passing by, both bowing their heads, as Li Shu cockily walks past. Hongnian states that Li Shu is very young, as a virtuous consort like Li Shu would normally wear white, but instead Li Shu chose to wear a dark pink, a color similar to Gyokuyu's crimson red. As Hongnian leaves, Ma Mao spots several girls freezing cold, offering the girls to hold some coals to warm them up, but this only weirds them out. As Ma Mao returns to her friends, they start teasing Ma Mao for sharing her hand-warmer trick with other consorts' attendants, but Ma Mao suddenly spots a man handing his hairpin to a girl. Seeing Ma Mao intrigued, one of her friends mentions that fighting one hairpin is how men recruit ladies, but Ma Mao's friend also alludes to a second meaning. As Ma Mao leaves for some fresh air, a man, Lihaku, stops her, offering his hairpin. Seeing that Lihaku has got several other pins, Ma Mao is happy to receive a hairpin, but just then Lahua appears, prompting Ma Mao and the other attendants to greet her. As a gift, Lahua personally hands Ma Mao a hairpin as well, shocking the other girls as they wonder if Gyokuyu will be okay with Ma Mao garnering so much attention. With Ma Mao now preparing to test the food for poison, Ma Mao spots Gaoshan in the crowd, amazed that he is quite high-ranking. Also, Ma Mao spots Lihaku is also quite high-ranking, but wonders where Jinshi is compared to the others. With the first soup dish served, Ma Mao notes that there is no strange clouding appear, along with no peculiar smell from the soup. Upon drinking the soup, Ma Mao chases the soup with some water, confirming nothing strange with the dish, but upon seeing another fellow food taster so stressed, Ma Mao feels sorry for them, noting how she must be the only one that yearns for the taste of poison. Up next is a vinegar fish and vegetable dish, a favorite of the emperor's, but instead of blueback fish there is jellyfish. With nothing too outlandish, Ma Mao pans over to see Li Shu sweating at the thought of eating fish, but forces herself to eat it as she is in public. But as she looks at Li Shu's food taster, Ma Mao spots the food taster smirking whilst staring at Li Shu. At the same time, one of Lihaku's friends asks Lihaku to watch one of the food tasters, realizing that it is Ma Mao from earlier. Slowly watching as Ma Mao slowly slurps and enjoys the next dish, but as Ma Mao finishes enjoying the dish, she declares that the dish she just tasted was poisoned, quickly walking off. As Jinshi begins slowly walking to the stage, he makes it just in time to see another person collapse from tasting the dish, but spots Ma Mao running off somewhere. Checking up on Ma Mao, Jinshi is shocked to see Ma Mao so happy, grabbing and dragging her to the infirmary. Ma Mao notes how she would have loved to swallow the poison, but states that the poison would have easily paralyzed her, but hearing this, Jinshi gets weirded out. Jinshi states that another official had tried the dish themselves, making Ma Mao wonder what idiot would do so, offering to give Jinshi a bag of drugs that will help the people poisoned to throw up and get the poison out of their systems. Accepting the drugs, Jinshi continues to drag Ma Mao along, but Ma Mao notes how Jinshi has gotten a new hairpin, wondering why he wasn't at the party until now. Upon reaching the palace infirmary, Ma Mao is instructed to vomit the rest of the food in her stomach, ultimately impressed by the palace's drugs. Moving on to a more serious topic, Jinshi wants to know if Ma Mao suspects the person that may have wanted to poison Gyokuyu, but Ma Mao asks for Jinshi to bring Li Shu. Being able to charm Li Shu into coming, Jinshi introduces Li Shu and her food taster to Ma Mao. Spotting Li Shu scratching herself, Ma Mao rushes to unveil her dress, spotting rashes scattered along Li Shu's arm. Ma Mao confirms that Li Shu is indeed allergic to fish, commenting how she herself is allergic to buckwheat, and could never build up a tolerance to it. Asking if Li Shu is handling the fish okay, Ma Mao states that the vinegar fish dish she tasted earlier had jellyfish, meaning that Lady Gyokuyu's dishes and Lady Li Shu's dishes were swapped. Upon confirming that Li Shu is allergic to mackerel, Ma Mao glares at Li Shu's food taster, speculating that although the food taster knew Li Shu was allergic to mackerel, she still allowed Li Shu to eat a dish with mackerel. Having written up several other foods that Li Shu should avoid, Ma Mao personally hands Li Shu's food taster the list, glaring and warning the food taster to not act out, or else she may disappear. With Jinshi asking Ma Mao what just happened, Ma Mao feigns ignorance, but before Ma Mao leaves, she states that there may have been other attempts at poisoning. Now alone, Gaoshan asks Jinshi if the poisoning is somehow related to the wooden tablets, alluding to a lady-in-waiting that visited earlier not having any burns on her hands. The next morning, Ma Mao is seen dreaming of her father, wondering if he's alright. Apparently after the party, the other attendants ordered Ma Mao to get plenty of rest, ultimately leading to Ma Mao sleeping until noon. Reporting to Gyokuyu, Ma Mao apologizes for sleeping in, but Gyokuyu states that Ma Mao could have taken the day off. Upon seeing Ma Mao's face, Gyokuyu wonders why Ma Mao has added freckles to her face, but Ma Mao states she's more comfortable with them on. Changing topics, Gyokuyu tells Ma Mao that Gaoshan has been wanting to speak with Ma Mao, assigned to pluck some weed in the meantime. Greeting Gaoshan, Ma Mao hears that Jinshi wanted to give Ma Mao the poisonous soup in the cup Gyokuyu was supposed to drink. Upon confirming that no one has touched the silver cup up until now, Ma Mao heads to retrieve some cotton, powder and a brush. Taking some cotton and dabbing it in the powder, Ma Mao begins patting the silver cup with the powder, brushing off the excess to reveal some fingerprints. Ma Mao reveals that the oils that excrete from the human body easily stain silver, hence why silver utensils are cleaned thoroughly. Suddenly realizing something about Li Shu and her food taster, Ma Mao quickly hides her realization, explaining to Gaoshan that 4 people in total touched the silver cup. Since they already know that someone must have poured, carried and tasted the soup, it leads Ma Mao to assume that the 4th person must be the one to have poisoned the soup. Hearing this, Gaoshan wonders why Li Shu's food taster is touching Gyokuyu's dish, but Ma Mao reveals that Li Shu's food taster had swapped Li Shu's and Gyokuyu's dishes to bully Li Shu. Shocked that a lady-in-waiting will bully a high-ranking concubine, Gaoshan listens to Ma Mao's reasoning, learning that Li Shu's lady-in-waitings must have personally recommended Li Shu to wear a similar color to Gyokuyu, only to purposely wear white themselves, making Li Shu seem childish and disrespectful towards Gyokuyu. Sadly, Ma Mao knows that concubines can only rely and trust their ladies-in-waiting, but for Li Shu, it seems that the people she can trust the most are nothing but bullies. The bright side was that, since Ma Mao tasted the poison meant for Li Shu, Ma Mao was able to save Li Shu's life. When Gaoshan wonders what would have caused the ladies-in-waiting to turn on Li Shu, Ma Mao suspects that the ladies are not only jealous that Li Shu was able to become a concubine to the previous emperor at such a young age, but they also believe the Li Shu is disgusting for choosing to leech off the existing emperor after the previous emperor passed away. Seeing as the mysterious 4th person's fingerprints are near the edge, Ma Mao suspects it to be another lady-in-waiting, but before Ma Mao leaves, Gaoshan asks why Ma Mao didn't reveal Li Shu's food taster's crime of swapping and bullying Li Shu. Surprised that Gaoshan found out, Ma Mao reveals that she knows how rough it is to be a food taster, so Ma Mao reasons that remaining Li Shu's food taster is enough of a punishment. Reporting to Jinshi on his findings, Jinshi praises Gaoshan for getting the truth out from Ma Mao, but complains that he hasn't gotten any time to rest, as he's trying to figure out the culprit. Choosing to rest at his desk, Gaoshan reminds Jinshi to act more professional, but ends up helping Jinshi to remove his hairpin, something only a special individual can wear. As Gaoshan leaves for the night, Jinshi perks up, stating that he can finally get to work. The next day, Ma Mao sits with Xiaolon, who is excited to hear that Ma Mao received several hairpins, mentioning that Ma Mao can finally leave the rear palace. Shocked to hear this, Ma Mao learns that with a hairpin, Ma Mao can as the hairpin owner to assist Ma Mao temporarily or permanently leave the rear palace. Seeing as there is really only one man she can turn to, we cut to Lihaku, who is busy training, stopping as he has received a message from Ma Mao, wondering how he should turn her down, having only given out the pins as a formality. Choosing to privately chat with Ma Mao, Lihaku is shocked to see Ma Mao is completely different without makeup, but asks why Ma Mao had summoned him. Upon hearing that Ma Mao would like Lihaku to vouch for her to visit her home, Lihaku gets pissed, wondering what Ma Mao can give in exchange. As a trump card, Mao reveals that she has special vouchers to the Verdigris house, a super-renowned brothel that would normally take up on years' worth of Lihaku's salary. Seeing Lihaku hesitant at first, Mao chooses to play hard to get, taking back the vouchers only to show off 2 of her other hairpins. Upon realizing that the 2 other pins are far superior than his, Lihaku has no choice but to accept Mao's offer, fearing that he'll never get a chance like this again. Reporting the good news to Gyokuyu and the other girls, Mao promises to bring back souvenirs, but Gyokuyu and Hongnina note how Mao probably doesn't know the full extent of what the hairpin means. As Mao leaves, we see Jinshi finding out that Mao had left the rear palace with another man, but Gyokuyu adds that it'll only be for 3 days. With Mao and Lihaku traveling by carriage, Mao reveals that the town near her village is renowned as the Pleasure District, with the 3 princesses of the Verdigris house idolized by the whole country. Upon arriving at the entrance of the Verdigris house, Mao rushes to hug Granny, but instead receives a swift blow to her stomach. Mao reassures Lihaku that she's fine, as Granny used to perform the trick to allow Mao to spit out all the poison she would test and consume. Happy to see Lihaku has lots of muscles, Granny assigns Lihaku Perrin, finally alone with Mao. Wondering why Mao left for 10 months, Mao states that she had sent a letter, which the Granny confirms she got. That's why she chose to service Lihaku for a discount. Taking out the money she earned at the rear palace, Mao apologizes for not making enough to afford Perrin, but Granny states that Mao simply needs to bring in more young guests like Lihaku, so they can squeeze them for all their money. As Granny leaves, she tells Mao to quickly return to her father, heading back down the street that she grew up on. Upon entering her father's home, Mao spots her father doing the same thing as when she left, sitting down and telling her father stories of her time at the rear palace. Telling her father that she'll need to return in 2 days' time, Mao chooses to rest for the night, but as Mao sleeps, her father reveals that he has connections with the rear palace. The next morning, Mao wakes up, remembering that she is home, but notes how she is quite sweaty. Seeing that her father isn't home, Mao reasons that her father is probably out in the herb field, wishing that her father would stop working at his age. Just then, a little girl begins banging on her home, prompting Mao to approach her and ask what's the problem. Without saying anything, the little girl grabs Mao, dragging her into the house, where she sees a crowd forming in front of a room. Upon entering the room, Mao is stunned to see 2 people incapacitated, but snapping out of the daze, Mao gets to work, assessing the situation. Seeing as the man isn't breathing and the woman is barely breathing, Mao orders another helper to check if the lady has anything clogging the throats. With Mao and the helper applying CPR to both people, Mao orders the little girl to bring charcoal. With Mao managing to resuscitate the 2, Mao cleans out her mouth, sarcastically remarking that it's great to be home. As Mao asks the house's ladies to not touch anything within the room, Mao begins inspecting the room, noting how the 2 victims were a courtesan and a customer. Upon entering the room, Mao picked up scents of alcohol and tobacco, also spotting 2 bottles, some broken glass, wheat stalks, a pipe and some tobacco. With the little girl arriving with the charcoal Mao had asked for, Mao asks for something to write on, giving the little girl a message, asking the little girl to go fetch her father's in the herb field. As the little girl leaves, she gives Mao a dark stare, but as the little girl returns with Mao's father, Mao reports that she has crushed the charcoal and it should be ready to be mixed with herbs to treat the 2 victims. Following the courtesan, we see that she has gotten better, learning that the male customer is also now stable. With Mao and her father alone, Mao reveals that her father is quite smart, able to piece together things with simple clues. Asking Mao to sit with him, Mao's father tests Mao, asking what she thought caused everything. Mao states that she believes the tobacco leaves are quite poisonous, being commonly used for suicides, which her father confirms is true. Asking if Mao had them drink water, Mao states that she didn't, which her father commends, as the stomach acid can prevent poison from being absorbed, but when water is added, it makes it easier for the human stomach to absorb the poison. Next, Mao's father pokes a hole in Mao's deduction, asking what if the tobacco leaves were soaked in water beforehand, prompting Mao to confirm that there are no leaves in the vomit, meaning that diluting the poison with water may have actually been better. As the owner of the house thanks Mao and her father, Mao sees that the wheat stalks are used to drink liquids without messing up one's lipstick. As a thanks, the owner pays Mao and her father, but when Mao's father attempts to decline the payment, Mao reminds her father that he has to pay for rent. Mao notes how the man and women must have attempted a double suicide, as it's not too uncommon for something to occur, as usually poor men and unhappy courtesan would agree to take their own lives. Mao finds it weird that the man who wears such expensive clothes would choose to take his own life, but just then Mao spots the little girl visiting the man, reasoning that she too should check up on the man as well. Upon entering the room, Mao is horrified to see the little girl attempting to stab the man, swiftly disarming the girl. Hearing the little girl scream that the man deserves to die, Mao headbutts the little girl, forcing her onto her knees. But just then, a lady arrives, asking to speak privately with Mao. The lady reveals that the man poisoned was quite a problematic customer, always flirting and promising to purchase and give women a better life, only to lie and dump the girls. Having been stabbed and poisoned in the past, the man comes from a rich merchant, ultimately choosing to resolve issues with money. It's revealed that the man did the same thing to the little girl's older sister, but it turns out the older sister had fallen for the scummy man. The concubine that was poisoned is apparently friends with the little girl's sister, and had tried a double suicide with the man. Since they can't ban the man, as it would be bad for business, they have no choice but to leave him as is. As Mao and her father head home, Mao thinks about how scary the little girl is, having specifically ran to search for her father, which she probably knew wasn't home, instead of going to search for an actual doctor. Returning home, Mao asks to check the money they were paid, confirming that the owner paid them to stay quiet about what happened. Still unable to figure out why a man that had been poisoned previously would be so easily poisoned, but before Mao can conclude anything, her father reminds Mao to only consider facts. Diving back through all the points she knows, Mao concludes that it wasn't a double suicide but in fact poison, but before she can tell her father tells Mao that the case is already over. As Mao walks through town, she explains that the courtesan must have poisoned the man, using 2 types of liquid. Since the man would want her to taste any drink before he did, the courtesan must have poured an edible liquid and a non-edible liquid into the same cup, but due to the liquids' different densities, the edible and non-edible liquids would form their own layers. The courtesan simply drank from the bottom edible liquid with a straw, whereas the man would drink the poison. Afterwards, the lady would sip a little of the poison, just enough for her to survive. But some things still don't make sense, as Mao wonders if the little girl knew what the courtesan was doing as she purposely didn't want a doctor to come, or if the owner knew what was happening and purposely paid for their silence. Knowing that she can't operate on speculation, Mao makes her way to the verdigris house, using its bath to clean up. Just then, Mei joins Mao, revealing that Granny, herself and other princesses were worried about her. That night, Mao is seen visiting the annex, falling asleep as she sits beside someone sleeping. With the 3 days already over, Mao's father wishes her well, heading over to pick up Lihaku who has already been ensnared by Perrin. Returning to the Jade Pavilion, Mao can't help but notice Jinshi's glare from behind, but before Mao can flee, Jinshi asks to speak with her privately. Seeing Jinshi so agitated, Mao asks what is agitating him, but Jinshi instead asks how Mao's visit home was. Upon hearing that nothing happened with Lihaku, Jinshi asks if Mao knows what choosing Lihaku as a guarantor means, but Mao says she believes a guarantor is a high-ranking official with a good record. Seeing Jinshi at a loss for words, Mao states that she didn't want to rely on Jinshi, fearing that she could never repay him, like she did Lihaku. Hearing this, Jinshi believes that she gave up her body to convince Lihaku, but as Mao leaves, we see Hongnian rushing to slap Mao for being misleading, all whilst Gyokuyu laughs at what they heard. Cutting to the cafeteria area at night, we see several eunuchs gathered for dinner, but as they all chat they all suddenly hear a massive ceramic container shatter, followed by a drunk older eunuch demanding that they bring him more booze. Seeing the older man in a pathetic state, several eunuchs laugh at how thanks to him, they'll probably never drink. Suddenly we see a mysterious man placing some mysterious substance in some bottles of booze, only to hand it to the older man, coldly watching as the older man gulps down the spiked booze. The next morning, Gaoshan asks for Jinshi to stop sulking, reminding Jinshi that he still has lots of work to do. Gaoshan thinks about how Jinshi has accomplished a lot in his life, seeing unusual for Jinshi to act so childish and be so attached to another person's life. As Gaoshan hands Jinshi some paperwork, Gaoshan thinks about how he managed to convince Gyokuyu to explain to Jinshi that it wasn't Maamao that offered her body to Lihaku but instead Maamao asked another experienced lady to repay the favor. Still, Gaoshan admits how unlucky it was for Jinshi to put so much effort, freeing up time to mess with Maamao, only to hear that Maamao left to spend time with another man. As Jinshi and Gaoshan begin working through the papers, they both note how nobles try to pass bills to benefit themselves, but it's ultimately up to Jinshi to verify them. As they both work on the papers all throughout the day and into the night, they are suddenly interrupted by an eunuch, revealing that Sir Conan has passed away. The next morning, Jinshi reports the bad news to Gyokuyu and Maamao, both sad to hear that a high-ranking man had passed away. As Maamao hears that Conan had drunk himself to death, Maamao has no sympathy for him, but Jinshi suddenly asks if Maamao thinks Conan truly drank himself to death. Speaking with Jinshi, Maamao reiterates that heavy drinking does ultimately poison and weaken one's organs, explaining Conan's death, but Jinshi tells Maamao that Conan was celebrating during a party by drinking out with friends. Wondering why Jinshi would tell her that, Jinshi adds that Conan easily handled his alcohol, but he wasn't liked by many people. Taking out some booze, Jinshi pours Maamao a cup of booze, exciting Maamao. But Jinshi adds that unfortunately the last jar of booze Conan drank from was shattered and the booze was lost. Seeing Jinshi so sad, Maamao reasons that with the information Jinshi told her, there is no way of finding out if Conan was poisoned or not. Taking a sip of the booze, Maamao is disgusted by the sweet and salty flavors, but Jinshi reveals that Conan loved sweet foods, never touching even the most valuable of smoked meats or rarest of rock salts. Reminiscing, Jinshi states that Conan used to love spicy food but one day switched to loving sweet foods, but Maamao interrupts, wondering if Conan passed due to diabetes. As Maamao takes another sip, she learns that there were rock salts, mooncakes and dried meat at the party, prompting Maamao to request to see the last drinking jar Conan touched before he passed. Jinshi states the jar is shattered, but Maamao states she still wants to see it, finishing up several more cups of booze, only to mention that she has an idea of what happened. The next day, Maamao greets Jinshi, who has brought the shattered jar, along with Gaoshan handing Maamao a report on the incident. Reading through the report, Maamao heads towards the shattered jar, licking off some substance from the jar, shocking Gaoshan and Jinshi. Reassuring them that she's fine, Maamao drops some of the leftover substance in a fire, revealing that the jar had an overabundance of salt in it, ultimately poisoning Conan. Wondering how Conan didn't stop drinking such a salty beverage, Maamao hands Jinshi the report, deducing that Conan must have lost his ability to taste salty things. Apparently, Kun was quite a talented and smart bureaucrat, but unfortunately he had lost his wife and child to an epidemic, choosing to escape by drinking and consuming sweets. Maamao states that Conan's inability to taste salty things is a form of illness that stems from an unbalanced diet or stress. Hearing all of this, Jinshi asks Maamao who could have placed salt in Conan's drink, but Maamao states that she has no idea. Maamao does add that the booze she tasted yesterday had salt, so it could have been someone that didn't like sweet drinks, or it could have been co-workers that tried pranking Conan but simply took it too far, and poisoned Conan. Hearing all this, Jinshi whispers something to Gaoshan, sending him off, but at the same time, Maamao thinks about how she doesn't want to reveal the culprit, fearing that she'll get someone punished, but notes how she had given Jinshi enough clues already. As Jinshi thanks Maamao for the insight, Maamao spots an obsidian tassel tied to Jinshi's waist, asking how close Jinshi was to Conan. Jinshi reveals that Conan was crucial to him when Jinshi was a child, making Maamao feel sorry for Jinshi. As a thanks for all the help, Jinshi gives Maamao a bottle of booze, exciting Maamao. But as Jinshi tries to tease Maamao, Maamao fires back, teasing Jinshi for slacking on his paperwork. Backed into a corner, Jinshi mentions how he has the ability to pass a law that forbids underage drinking until the age of 20 years old, finally getting Maamao to concede their little dispute. As several days pass, we see a mysterious lady suddenly being flung into a body of water, helplessly left to drown. The next day, Mao and the quack doctor are called to inspect the body of the victim, impressing Mao as the corpse had been preserved due to the cold weather. Asking about the victim, Mao learns that the victim was most likely a servant from the rear palace and her body was found in the moat surrounding the palace, but gets thrown off seeing how scared the quack doctor is. Too scared to touch the body, the quack doctor asks if Mao can search and touch the body, but Mao states that her teacher forbade Mao from touching corpses. Just then, Jinshi appears, asking Mao more on the reason she can't touch corpses, but Mao shyly remarks that humans can become ingredients as well, and her father had foresaw Mao experimenting with human corpses, forbidding Mao from doing something so inhumane. As the quack doctor begins performing an autopsy on the corpse, they note how the woman is tall, has hard wooden shoes, bandages on one foot and all her fingers are red, but Mao can't help but feel bad for how cold the lady must have been in the water. That evening, Jinshi tells Mao that the lady was fine yesterday, suspecting that she must have climbed the palace walls and threw herself into the surrounding moat. Mao states that it can't just be suicide, as Mao couldn't find any ladder or way up on the walls by herself, but notes how there are intrusion on the palace wall that can help people climb up there, revealing that Fuyu used the intrusions to climb the wall by herself. Since the victim's feet were bound to appear more small and beautiful, meaning that murder is not completely off the table either, as Mao suspects the victim had tried to climb out of the moat whilst drowning, but failed, hence her red fingers. Pondering for a bit, Mao thinks about how cruel the world is, as people aren't able to choose when they die, especially if they fall prey to other people. As Mao begins going through her traumatic past, she asks if Jinshi were to ever to execute her, that he would at least choose poison. Confused as to the sudden dark tone, Jinshi states that he would never execute her, but Mao reminds Jinshi that she is simply a commoner, and that the world is quite cruel to commoners. Seeing as she may have soured the mood, Mao excuses herself, but it's later revealed that the victim had also attended the garden party and people had found a written will, meaning people deemed the case a suicide. As several more days pass by, we cut to Gaoshan finally reporting that he has finally found someone with burns on their arms, revealing it to be Fengming, the head lady in waiting for concubine Ah Duo. Heading to chat with Xiaolan, Mao listens to the rumors Xiaolan has heard, believing that the servant that drowned belonged to the Garnet Pavilion. People suspect that the servant was ordered by concubine Ah Duo, but Xiaolan also reveals that Ah Duo will probably be replaced by a younger concubine eventually. This is because Ah Duo is 1 year older than the emperor, being 35 years old, and although Ah Duo was able to conceive a baby boy, it sadly passed away long ago. Hearing this, Mao thinks about how trapped ladies are in the rear palace, solely being used to give birth, wondering if Lady Lahua will grow old and be replaced, or if Gyokuyu will be abandoned by the emperor. Before Xiaolan leaves, Mao hands Xiaolan some leftover food from their most recent tea party, exciting Xiaolan. But as Mao returns back to the Jade Pavilion, she learns that they'll be having another tea party. Seeing as everyone is more busy than usual, Mao learns that Lady Lishu will be attending the tea party. With everything set up, Lady Gyokuyu greets Lady Lishu, both already tense as Mao notes how they both to be more wary than when the emperor was here. Watching Gyokuyu conversate, Mao is impressed, as Gyokuyu is able to control and steer the conversation with her polite manners. Mao heard that Gyokuyu constantly sends messages to her family, making sure to be aware of current events in the outside world, making her an intellect worthy to be a concubine. As Mao glances at Lishu's food taster, Mao feels bad as the food taster is scared to death of Mao, and on top of that, Lishu's other lady-in-waiting doesn't seem to be paying attention. To ease the conversation, Gyokuyu asks if Lishu would like some snacks, delighting Lishu. Unveiling their sweet drink, Gyokuyu shows Lishu a drink that will warm her up, consisting of boiled orange peels and honey. But hearing the ingredients, Lishu's face drops, prompting Mao to deduce that Lishu is allergic to honey, all whilst Lishu's lady-in-waiting mock Lishu for being a picky eater again. Intervening, Mao sips the orange and honey drink, signaling to Gyokuyu that they should offer another beverage, opting for some hot ginger water instead, pleasing Lishu. Seeing Lishu's lady-in-waiting annoyed that Lishu wasn't forced to consume the honey, Ma Mao confirms that Li Shu is still being bullied. As everything wraps up, Ma Mao is forbidden from helping clean up the tea party, running into Jinshi, who Ma Mao suspects set up the tea party. Before Ma Mao can leave, Jinshi asks if Ma Mao had heard about the rumors regarding the attempted poisoning being tied to the servant who drowned. Upon confirming that she has heard the rumors, Jinshi asks if Ma Mao truly believes the servant took her own life, but Ma Mao can't say for certain. Jinshi also asks why a mere servant would poison Li Shu, but Ma Mao reiterates that she doesn't know. With no other choice, Jinshi reveals that Ma Mao will be working under A Duo, stationed at the Garnet Pavilion for the next couple of days. As Ma Mao heads over to the Garnet Pavilion, Ma Mao notes how unlike Gyokuyu's comfy jade pavilion and Liwa's refined crystal pavilion, A Duo's pavilion feels simple. Greeting Ma Mao and some other servants, Feng Ming, the head lady in waiting, states that they'll be working here for the next 3 days, only to be interrupted by A Duo herself. Glancing at A Duo, Ma Mao is mesmerized by A Duo's masculine and feminine appearance, wondering if A Duo is truly 35 years of age. As A Duo thanks the servants for the extra help, she heads elsewhere, but Ma Mao notes how she reminds her of someone. As Feng Ming guides them around the Garnet Pavilion, Ma Mao notes how Feng Min is quite approachable, believing Feng Ming would be more entitled and from a noble family. Feng Ming asks Ma Mao and the other girls to begin dusting off some old items, but Ma Mao spots Feng Ming has bandages wrapped around her arm. Getting to work, Ma Mao notes how many items are in the room, heading outside with some books, impressed that the servants are all working hard, unlike Liwa's ladies-in-waiting. Individually spreading out and opening up the books, impressing Feng Ming, which Ma Mao notices is very fit to be head lady-in-waiting, giving plenty of compliments as well as being very observant. With a tough day of cleaning over, Ma Mao slowly waddles to report her finished work, impressing Feng Ming as she has given Ma Mao and the other servants a huge room to rest, even lighting a scented candle to set the mood. As Ma Mao lays next to the other girls, she wonders Jinshi's reason for sending her here, having not told Ma Mao to do anything in particular. The next morning, Ma Mao watches on as all of A Duo's servants continue to work hard, even spotting Feng Ming set an example, joining in to ease the workload. Seeing this dedication, Ma Mao wonders if Feng Ming ever considered marriage or if Feng Ming chose to serve A Duo for life. Ma Mao reasons if Feng Ming was deeply loyal to A Duo, it could possibly explain Li Shu's poisoning, as Feng Ming feared A Duo would be replaced, choosing to free up a spot by taking out another fellow concubine. As Ma Mao is called to help elsewhere, she notes the abundance of honey, learning that Feng Ming's family owns a bee farm, explaining the sweet candle scent last night. Beginning to move the honey elsewhere, Ma Mao spots Lady Li Shu and her food taster, both acting frightened, wondering why they're here at the Garnet Pavilion and if it has anything to do with honey. With her 3 days up, Ma Mao reports back to Jinshi, annoyed that Jinshi is acting so nonchalant and asking vague questions. Getting serious, Jinshi asks who would be most qualified to contact the outside world, out of the ladies in the Garnet Pavilion. Realizing that Jinshi is leading her somewhere, Ma Mao reveals that Feng Min would be the most qualified, having deduced that the bandages around her arm link her to the mysterious colored wooden tablets, believing the tablets to have some sort of code. Happy to hear that Ma Mao is on the same page, Jinshi dips his finger in some honey, slowly approaching Ma Mao as he intends to give her a reward. Creeped out, Ma Mao begins to back away, only to be cornered, calling out to Gaoshan for help, but no reply. Wondering if she should just give in or escape, but as Jinshi slowly moves his fingers closer to Ma Mao, he utters that it's not honey but an aconite syrup. Upon hearing this, Ma Mao begins realizing something, piecing Li Shu's allergic reaction to the servants drowning along with realizing Feng Ming's involvement, all tied to syrup. Luckily, Gyokuyu catches Jishin in the act, scaring Jinshi off, checking to see if Ma Mao is alright. Still mad that Gaoshan let Jinshi get away with such an act, Ma Mao asks to visit Li Shu, accompanied by Gaoshan. Li Shu is sad to see that Jinshi isn't visiting, but allows Ma Mao to speak her mind, prompting Ma Mao to ask if Li Shu is allergic to honey. Li Shu is surprised that Ma Mao knows, revealing that when she was younger, her nurses forbid honey, believing it was life-threatening. Before Li Shu can say anything further, one of Li Shu's lady-in-waiting butts in, scolding Ma Mao for digging into Li Shu's private life, followed by another lady-in-waiting asking Li Shu to kick Ma Mao out. Seeing Li Shu being manipulated by the ones so close, Ma Mao declares that she is simply following Jin Shi's orders, getting the girls to back off. Getting serious, Ma Mao asks if Li Shu is aware of Feng Ming, spotting Li Shu's being terrified upon hearing that name. As Ma Mao and Gaoshan head back, Ma Mao asks if she can learn about past events in the rear palace, prompting Gaoshan to search previous court documents, wondering what Ma Mao has figured out. Sifting through the documents, Ma Mao realizes 17 years ago while the current emperor had their now deceased son, with Ah Duo. Apparently at the same time, the current emperor's father had a son as well, the current emperor's little brother. The documents state that Ah Duo and the current emperor were raised by the same parents, making them foster siblings, but most shocking of all, the baby that passed away was delivered by Dr. Luoman, Ma Mao's father. Sadly, Ma Mao had already suspected this, spotting herbs that she saw her father growing when she was younger, and can only be found in different regions. The documents state that Luoman was expelled, leading Ma Mao to wonder the reason for her father being kicked out. The next morning, Ma Mao heads to visit Feng Ming, telling Feng Ming that she has brought a gift for Ah Duo from Gyokuyu, but when Ma Mao shows what's inside the gift, Feng Ming gets serious, inviting Ma Mao in. As Feng Ming begins cooking up some snacks, Ma Mao spots several pieces of luggages packed up, confirming her suspicions. As Feng Ming serves Ma Mao her snacks, Feng Ming asks Ma Mao what she's looking for, but Ma Mao immediately asks when Feng Ming will be leaving. With Feng Ming impressed, Ma Mao continues, revealing that she knows the cleanup for the Garnet Pavilion was simply preparations to welcome the new high-ranked concubine and that Ah Duo must leave soon. Ma Mao also states that she suspects Ah Duo can no longer give birth, but Feng Ming states that's none of Ma Mao's business, only for Ma Mao to reveal that her father, Luoman, was the one that delivered the babies at that time. Ma Mao suspects that since the former emperor and the current emperor had babies at the same time, Ah Duo was ultimately left to give birth alone, as Ma Mao's father was forced to prioritize the previous emperor. With Feng Ming by Ah Duo's side, Ah Duo was luckily able to give birth to a baby boy, but at the cost of her uterus. As Feng Ming glares at Ma Mao states that the Ah Duo's baby passed away shortly after, deducing that Feng Ming was the one taking care of the child instead of Ah Duo. Praising Ma Mao for figuring everything out, Ma Mao adds that people believe the baby passed away from toxic white powder just like Liu's baby, but Ma Mao suspects it was another issue. With a serious glare, Feng Ming listens to Ma Mao as she notes Feng Min is quite smart, having kept the baby away from the white powder, unveiling the gift, revealed to be a flower and some honey. Ma Mao states that the nectar from flowers can be very poisonous, especially to newborns, revealing that Feng Min had unknowingly fed Ah Duo's child nectar, believing that it would be good for the child, but sadly it was poisonous. Ma Mao says that her father, the head doctor at the time, was ultimately blamed for the death of Ah Duo's baby and kicked out of the rear palace, but later Feng Ming found out that she was the reason, choosing to hide it from Ah Duo. Sadly, Feng Min had discovered that Li Shu was aware of such side effects of honey, so Feng Ming decided she would eliminate Li Shu. At the time, Li Shu was quite close with Ah Duo, as Li Shu was a child with no parents, and Ah Duo was a mother that had lost her child, both naturally gravitating to one another. One day, Li Shu had tried to tell Feng Ming about honey being dangerous to newborns, shocking Feng Ming as she didn't want Ah Duo to ever hear, driving Li Shu away from the rear palace. On top of that, when the previous emperor had passed away, Li Shu was no longer wanted in the rear palace, relieving Feng Ming. Unfortunately for Feng Ming, Li Shu was reinstated as the current emperor's concubine, meaning that Li Shu was once again capable of revealing the truth of Feng Ming poisoning Ah Duo's child with honey, prompting Feng Ming to poison Li Shu's soup during the garden party. With everything revealed, Feng Ming asks what Ma Mao wants, but as Ma Mao stares at the butcher knife behind Feng Ming, Ma Mao replies that she doesn't want anything. Sighing, Feng Ming reveals that she had always admired Ah Duo, being a person that could converse equally with the current emperor, compared to herself, who only followed her parents' orders to become a lady-in-waiting. As Feng Ming begins to break down, reliving the moment when Ah Duo lifelessly reassures her ladies-in-waiting to not blame themselves, as Ah Duo is aware that any child under the ages of 7 can pass away from any illness. Seeing Feng Ming cry, knowing that she was responsible for taking away the most precious thing in Ah Duo's life, Ma Mao wonders what Feng Ming was going through having to serve Ah Duo for 16 years after, attempting to make it up to Ah Duo. Knowing that Jin Shi would surely arrest Feng Ming if he found out, Ma Mao suggests an alternative plan, leaving as Ah Duo watches Ma Mao head home. That night, Ma Mao leaps into bed exhausted, revealing that she had wrapped herself in several layers of solidified oil paper, having expected to be slashed. The next morning, Jin Shi reveals that Feng Ming has turned herself in, asking if Ma Mao has anything to do with this, which Ma Mao feigns ignorance. Jin Shi adds that Ah Duo will be moved to the south side of the palace, a decision made by the emperor a while ago. As Ma Mao heads through the palace with some dirty clothes, she reveals that she instructed Feng Ming to combine her attempt at poisoning Li Shu with the cause of death for Ah Duo's baby, reasoning that it was the only way to hide what truly happened to Ah Duo's child, but sadly Ma Mao suspects Feng Ming will be sentenced to death. With several days passing, we see Jin Shi visit Ah Duo, all whilst Ma Mao struggles to fall asleep, choosing to have a midnight stroll. As Ma Mao climbs the palace walls, she admires the moon, noting how Feng Ming was executed and Ah Duo will be leaving the palace the next day. Just then, Ma Mao spots Ah Duo, offering to have a drink of booze. Unable to refuse the offer, Ma Mao learns that Ah Duo was always the emperor's friend, never expecting to be the emperor's concubine. Ma Mao wonders why Ah Duo clung onto the role of a concubine for so long, but Ah Duo ignores her, standing up and heading towards the edge of the palace walls, staring at the moat. Ah Duo notes how cold it must have been and how stupid the person must have been, leaving Ma Mao alone. As Ah Duo leaves, Ma Mao realizes that the servant that drowned truly was a suicide, and that Feng Ming had secretly helped the servant, even against Ah Duo's order. Seeing as it's too cold, Ma Mao begins heading back down the wall, but gets startled, falling off, only to realize it's Jin Shi. Attempting to leave, Ma Mao gets pulled for a hug from Jin Shi, revealing that he was forced to drink by Ah Duo, only to be thrown out. Feeling sorry for Jin Shi, Ma Mao tries to escape, but spots Jin Shi tearing up, allowing Jin Shi to cling on a little longer. The next morning, Ah Duo returns her crown, signifying the pure consort, handing it to Jin Shi. Seeing the two next to each other, Ma Mao realizes that Ah Duo reminds her of Jin Shi, remembering that Ah Duo never said her child passed, but instead left her. Ma Mao wonders if Ah Duo had purposely swapped babies with the previous emperors, known that her child would be a better life, and the reason she stayed in the rear palace so long was to ensure that her child would grow up right, also explaining why her father was punished for not noticing and explains why the younger brother emperor's brother is never seen. But Ma Mao notes she shouldn't just speculate, spotting Li Shu calling out to Ah Duo all whilst a single lady-in-waiting chases after her. Happy to see Ah Duo comfort Li Shu, Ma Mao leaves, as it's getting cold, but at the same time, we see Jin Shi investigate Feng Ming's family along with Ma Mao's past. Reviewing what happened after Feng Ming's execution, Jin Shi notes how Feng Ming's family was ultimately punished as well, but Ah Duo was deemed innocent as Feng Ming claimed all wrongdoings. Going through the list of family members connected to Feng Ming, Jin Shi notices the types of business the related families owned, along with 80 children belonging to those various families, all present in the rear palace. Out of those 2,000 people connected, 80 were children, and sadly one of the families was the one that bought Ma Mao after she was kidnapped. Seeing Jin Shi frustrated, Gaoshan mentions how they could simply cover the fact that Ma Mao is connected, but Jin Shi knows that Ma Mao is a righteous person, and if she ever found out, Jin Shi fears Ma Mao would hate him for keeping her in the rear palace. Not wanting to be hated by Ma Mao, Jin Shi is suddenly reminded by Gaoshan that Ma Mao is nothing but a pawn to him, snapping him out of his daze. Cutting to Ma Mao, we see her chatting with Xiaolan, learning that those connected to Feng Ming will most likely be let go, scaring Ma Mao as she hasn't been able to send any more customers to Granny. Fearing that if she returns home now, Granny will probably sell her off, prompting Ma Mao to begin running through the palace, checking to see if there are any connections between the merchant family that bought her after her kidnapping, and Feng Ming's family. Out of breath and still unsure of her situation, Ma Mao spots Jin Shi, running over to him and asking if they can chat. Moving to a private location, Jin Shi hands Ma Mao the list of people that will be let go, which Ma Mao realizes she will be one of those being let go, asking how Ma Mao feels about the situation. Ma Mao thinks about how life is quite pleasant in the rear palace, being able to taste all sorts of foods, as Gyokuyu's lady-in-waiting, whilst also having access to all sorts of herbs through the quack doctor. Sadly, Ma Mao knows she shouldn't beg, telling Jinshi that she knows she's a servant, so she'll happily accept whatever happens to her. Even though she knows she shouldn't, Ma Mao asks to stay and in exchange take a pay cut, but Jinshi has to be stern, officially relieving Ma Mao of her duties in the rear palace. With Ma Mao packed up, we cut to Jinshi sulking in the corner, with Gaoshan attempting to cheer him up with no progress. With a week passing, Gaoshan notes how Ma Mao politely left, but Gyokuyu was not very happy with the decision, but Jinshi had reasoned that he didn't want to keep Ma Mao only to be used, but Gaoshan wonders if there will ever be another like Ma Mao, as she probably was more than any other normal toy Jinshi was used to. With Ma Mao returning to the pleasure district, she is immediately assigned to attend a party with the 3 verdigris princesses, shocked to hear that a noble was able to afford all 3 princesses at once. As Ma Mao gets ready for the party, she reveals that she was paid a good amount when she was fired, able to avoid being sold off, and instead is assigned to attend the upcoming party to help the verdigris princesses stand out. As Granny barges in to order the girls to hurry up with preparations, Granny notes how beautiful Ma Mao is, asking if Ma Mao would reconsider being a courtesan. As Ma Mao and the others head towards the nobles' party, Ma Mao notes how she doesn't have the features nor the talent to play the part of a courtesan, ultimately arriving at the noble party. Upon entering, Ma Mao is amazed at all the antique and valuable goods littered around the noble's palace, entering a room filled with young nobles that apparently Lihaku had introduced. With the verdigris princesses spotting their next prey, Ma Mao and several other ladies head to work, entertaining, dancing, singing and serving the nobles. As Ma Mao makes her rounds, she suddenly spots a depressed nobleman, checking to see if he's okay. Surprisingly, it's Jinshi, who is surprised to see Ma Mao here, all dolled up and among other courtesans. Ma Mao reveals that their part-time job is a courtesan, shocking Jinshi, but Ma Mao reassures him that she's still pure. Seeing as this is the perfect chance, Ma Mao asks if she can work at the rear palace again, but Jinshi notes how he thought Ma Mao didn't like working there. Ma Mao corrects Jinshi, having tried to convince him to let her stay, but Jinshi fired her regardless. As Ma Mao begins listing the great memories she had in the rear palace, Jinshi laughs, apologizing for the miscommunication. Jinshi states that Ma Mao isn't the best at communication sometimes, which Ma Mao already knows, but this makes Jinshi reach towards Ma Mao's face, prompting Ma Mao to naturally pull away. Knowing that Jinshi is quite persistent, Ma Mao allows Jinshi to touch with only fingers, watching as he smears Ma Mao's lipstick onto his fingers, only to kiss his fingers, flustering Ma Mao. As the other concubines notice Jinshi and Ma Mao flirting, Ma Mao realizes that Gaoshan is also present, ultimately forced to explain what happened to her 3 verdigris sisters. Returning to being an apothecary, Ma Mao begins working at the verdigris house, recounting her life over the past year, being kidnapped, sold off, promoted and finally fired. Just then, Granny appears, asking if she can help out with a patient, only to head to wash off. Spotting Granny join her, Ma Mao notes how the brothel and the rear palace are quite similar, promising to pay off her debt, but unsure what the future entails. That night, Ma Mao struggles to fall asleep, telling her dad that she needs to get some fresh air, heading into the garden, only to reminisce about her time in the rear garden, all whilst it begins to snow. The next day, Jinshi arrives at the verdigris house, offering Granny a huge amount of gold, along with a strange insect, all in exchange for Ma Mao. Flashing back, we see Jinshi sitting with the emperor, asking Jinshi to personally attend to his garden. Knowing how cunning the emperor is, Jinshi notes how he can barely outperform a regular person with intellect and martial arts, but he's grateful to be given looks more beautiful than any other. Being offered some wine by the emperor, Jinshi gulps down the cup of wine, accepting the emperor's offer to manage the rear palace. Cutting to the present, we see Mei Mei gifting Ma Mao all sorts of accessories, but Ma Mao notes how she doesn't have to look all nice to go to work. Scolding Ma Mao, Mei Mei states that Ma Mao should at least put in a little effort, as Mei Mei believes that she has to show gratitude for such an opportunity. Ma Mao thinks about how Mei Mei can basically retire with no worries, but her popularity as a courtesan persists, as Mei is very intellectual, able to entertain customers through song, chess and go. Just then, Pyron and Joka arrive. Joka wishes Ma Mao the best with her new job, but they also ask that Ma Mao send them some wealthy customers as well. As Ma Mao begins heading through the streets of town at night, she begins thinking about how she was lured in by the caterpillar fungus Jinshi had offered her, but Ma Mao also feels bad for leaving her father again. Ma Mao notes how her father did say he would allow her to do whatever she wants, but as Ma Mao heads back home, she greets her father who is shocked at all the items she got from the Verdigris princesses. Wondering how she'll bring her mortar, pestle and notebook, Ma Mao's father notes how Ma Mao isn't a doctor, and by carrying around those heavy-duty items, it'll seem like Ma Mao is plotting something. Seeing as tomorrow is the big day, Ma Mao and her father head to sleep, with Ma Mao scooching close to her father. Seeing Ma Mao guilty for leaving, Ma Mao's father reassures Ma Mao that she can return anytime she wants, knowing that her father, her granny along with her 3 big sisters will be waiting for her. With the big day arriving, Jinshi is shocked to see Ma Mao being delivered by Granny and the 3 Verdigris princesses, but before Ma Mao leaves, Granny reminds Ma Mao to bring back wealthy guests. With Ma Mao entering a carriage with Jinshi, Ma Mao blames Jinshi for drawing so much attention, but before Jinshi can say anything, he gets nervous, choosing to ride in silence. As they reach the rear palace gates, Jinshi spots Ma Mao catching the eyes of fellow guards, asking Ma Mao to put back on the freckles whilst she's working. At the same time, we see a man playing Go all by himself, learning that Jinshi had recently bought a courtesan, intrigued that the lady was from the Verdigris house. Upon reaching their destination, Jinshi is very protective of Ma Mao, revealing that Ma Mao will be working at Jinshi's house. Gaoshan explains that since Ma Mao was fired from the rear palace, Ma Mao will now be working in the outer court, compared to the rear palace which is considered the inner court. Upon entering the premises, an older lady helps take Jinshi's jacket, introducing herself as Surian, Jinshi's attendant, explaining that she has heard of Xiaomao, Ma Mao's supposed alias. Showing Ma Mao around, Surian states that there are 2 separate buildings and that one building has an office and the other is the personal residence. Surian mentions Jinshi as a young master, piquing Ma Mao's interest, but as Ma Mao is shown her room, she notes how luxurious her room is, especially for a servant like her. Speaking to Jinshi, Jinshi states that Ma Mao won't be a servant, and instead would like Ma Mao to take the court lady exam. With no other option, Ma Mao wakes up early the next day, applying her freckles makeup, along with wearing her newly cotton garment, heading outside. Upon spotting some smoke nearby, Ma Mao heads to greet Surian, offering to help cook breakfast, but Surian reassures Ma Mao she's almost done. Ma Mao learns that there aren't any other attendants, as Surian is quite strict on the type of food Jinshi gets served, shocked to hear that the previous attendants hired ultimately didn't last. As Surian tells Ma Mao horror stories of past attendants, Ma Mao heads to help wake up Jinshi, amazed at the wasted potential of Jinshi's beauty. Just then, Jinshi offers Ma Mao a different room, but Ma Mao is curious why the sudden offer, spotting Gaoshan trying to tell her something. Asking for a room with a stable and a well nearby, Jinshi unfortunately can't provide stables, but we cut to later that day. As Ma Mao and Gaoshan walk through the palace, Ma Mao notes how Jinshi is actually quite busy, always wandering around the rear palace, but as Ma Mao and Gaoshan head through the palace, Gaoshan asks Ma Mao to avoid other military officers at all cost. Being led around the outer palace, Ma Mao struggles to remember all the locations, ultimately stopped by the Director of Waters, the department responsible for rivers, demand and water projects. Checking out the area, Ma Mao notes the lack of herbs in the outer palace, noting that it must have been her father that planted herbs in the rear palace. Gaoshan reminds Ma Mao to stay focused, as she'll be working in the outer palace when she becomes a court lady. Upon returning to Jinshi's home, Ma Mao spots Surian cutting up some charcoal, and asks to deliver the charcoal to Jinshi. Upon entering his office, Ma Mao is amazed as Jinshi's office is filled with top-class items, wondering how high up Jinshi truly is. As Ma Mao leaves Jinshi's office, she spots several court ladies eyeing her down, reasoning that it's quite normal to check out the new girl. Apparently, the court ladies in the outer palace are far more qualified and educated, compared to the female officials in the rear palace, explaining the arrogance of the court ladies. As Mao Mao stops to clean a dirty spot on the palace walls, the court ladies walk up to Mao Mao, demanding to know why Jinshi was assigned such a frail-looking girl. Thinking of a way to resolve things, Mao Mao utters that they're simply jealous of her, but this gets Mao Mao slapped. Seeing she was being too vague, Mao Mao states that she knows the court girls fear that Jinshi has a peculiar taste for underdeveloped girls like Mao Mao, irritating the girls as Mao Mao is reading their minds. When one of the court ladies asks for the exact reason for Jinshi hiring Mao Mao unveils her left arm, disgusting the ladies, as Mao Mao was performing various experiments on her arm recently. As the court ladies leave, Mao Mao realizes Jinshi was listening in on their conversation, checking to see if Mao Mao has been studying, but Mao Mao simply sneaks away to do some chores. With Mao Mao studying all night, she gets distracted easily, ultimately leading up to exam day where Jinshi is disappointed to see Mao Mao had failed the exam. Now assigned as Jinshi's personal servant, Mao Mao goes on a walk through the palace, noticing a particular alleyway with various herbs, ultimately heading towards a large green hill. Before Mao Mao can head towards the hill, Mao Mao is hit on the head by a court lady, instructing Mao Mao to not proceed beyond this area. As the court lady leaves, Mao Mao smells sandalwood, mixed with another bitter smell emanating from the court lady. Mao Mao realizes that the location ahead belongs to the military, but at the same time, we see a man smirking, having spotted Mao Mao from afar. Several days later, we see that the new pure consort has arrived, dressed elegantly as she passes through the palace's snow-filled location. With the pure consort heading to her room, we see that Gyokuyu is happy to hear that Mao Mao is back in the palace, but at the same time we see Mao Mao planting various herbs in the outer palace to liven up the place. Just then, Surian appears, calmly reminding Mao Mao to clean up the office, prompting Mao Mao to apologize, rushing off to fulfill her duties. Cutting to Jinshi, we see him confused to see messages from both Lahua and Gyokuyu, but just then Mao Mao enters his office. Jinshi asks if Mao Mao has heard of the new pure consort that was set to replace Aduo, but Mao Mao admits she hasn't, which Jinshi reveals that the Mao Mao has been requested to educate the new pure consort. When Mao Mao calls Jinshi out for joking around, Jinshi reveals that Lahua and Gyokuyu had recommended Mao Mao to be the teacher, which Mao Mao can't refuse. Immediately packing her stuff, Mao Mao notes how she's being paid pretty well, thanks to her granny bargaining for higher pay. Getting an idea, Mao Mao tries to up the price for her teacher fees, but Surian intervenes, stopping Mao Mao from scamming Jinshi. Seeing Jinshi curious about all her belongings, Mao Mao growls at Jinshi, stopping him from snooping around. With Gaoshan offering to help Mao Mao wheel all her belongings, Mao Mao states that she will carry everything herself, setting off to the rear palace with Gaoshan and Jinshi. With a nostalgic feeling re-entering the rear palace, Mao Mao is still amazed at how Jinshi is with the ladies, but seeing as there are too many ladies around, Jinshi charmingly asks everyone to leave. Seeing as Mao Mao will be holding a meeting for only the concubines, Mao Mao stops Jinshi and Gaoshan from attending her lesson, barely able to push Jinshi out of the room. Finally, in front of the high-ranking concubines, Mao Mao is happy to see Gyokuyu and Hongnang are well. Mao Mao also sympathizes with Lishu being nervous, but is also impressed that Lady Lahua has made a full recovery since she last saw her. Finally is the new pure consort, Lady Lulin, seemingly wearing a flashy southern style. Getting right down to business, Mao Mao begins her lesson to help the ladies out, handing out copies of books and various items. As Mao Mao begins her lesson, we see Gyokuyu is giddy, Lahua is flustered, Lishu is shocked and Lulin is bored. With several hours passing, we see Jinshi outside trying to listen in on Mao Mao's lesson, but suddenly Mao Mao leaves the room, realizing that Jinshi was trying to peep on her lesson. Checking in on the concubines, Jinshi is surprised to see the various expressions on the ladies, but Mao Mao reiterates that she simply shared knowledge that should be kept between ladies. Happy to see that Gyokuyu and Lahua are at least happy, Mao Mao locks eyes with Lulin for a second, but Lulin simply turns away, leaving for now. That night, we see Mao Mao collapse into her bed, tired from all her duties today. Just then, Mao Mao hears a massive explosion. Springing out of bed, but realizes Surian will scold her if she leaves, so Mao chooses to stay in bed. At the scene, we see a man calling out to Master Lacan, who is inspecting the explosion, seemingly hiding something. The next day, Mao helps clean up Jinshi's office, taking piles of paper to burn near the military office, but suddenly is thankful that Gaoshan and Jinshi have given her some extra layer of clothing. Heading around the rear palace, Mao notes how it's such a shame that no medicinal herbs are being grown, making it her goal to plant herbs beside the already existing dandelions and mugworts. Getting distracted by various other plants, Mao spots Lihaku from afar, rushing to greet him. Noticing he has a different belt color, Mao realizes that Lihaku doesn't know she was fired from the rear palace, but commends Lihaku for working hard to get promoted in order to visit Pyron again. Mao reveals that, in order to spend a night with Pyron, a commoner must fork over half of their annual salary, but since Lihaku couldn't afford Pyron, Lihaku had been sitting down to have tea with other ladies, hoping to catch a glance of Pyron. Noticing the destroyed building, Mao learns that the massive noise was due to a fire last night, and Lihaku has been sent out to investigate. As Mao walks closer to investigate, she learns that no one was injured in the fire, only to observe the fire had spread to adjacent buildings. With the various scattered shrapnel, Mao realizes this must be an intentional attack, noting that the occasional barbarian attack against the emperor's property is plausible. Inside the burnt building, Mao spots a burnt potato, realizing the building must have stored food. Seeing something shiny, Mao heads over to pick up a smoking pipe, but is suddenly scolded by Lihaku for snooping around. Putting things together, Mao realizes something, escaping from Lihaku's grip, only to run across to the building in front of the burnt building. Upon confirming that this building also stores food, Mao asks if she can make use of various items and tools, wanting to test out a hypothesis. Constructing a wooden box, Mao fills the box with flour, asking for some water, along with everyone to be careful. As Mao lights a flame, she reminds Lihaku that the experiment will be dangerous, but Lihaku doesn't believe Mao. As Mao tosses the flame into the box, a small explosion suddenly encases Lihaku, who is splashed with water to avoid burns. Mao reveals that airborne flowers when ignited will cause a massive explosion, deducing that someone must have snuck into the storage room to have a quick smoke, unknowingly creating a massive explosion. Amazed that Mao knows all of this, Mao states that she had done something similar when she was younger, but Mao is more worried of Lihaku catching a cold, asking Lihaku to visit her father for some medicine if he visits the Verdigris house again. That night, Mao realizes that the steel pipe she found must have belonged to a high-ranking noble, choosing to clean it up and keep it for now. At the same time, we see a man crying that he is worthy too, but off to the side a mysterious man observes the crying man. The next day, we see several eunuchs chatting about how Lihaku had figured out the reason for the explosion in the storage room, but they all note how there are rumors that a servant girl was the one who solved it, believing she belongs to Jinshi. Just then Lacan appears, having been sleeping nearby, asking if the men could tell him more about the rumors. That night, we cut to Mao doing some housekeeping, only to run into Gaoshan, who asks Mao to look at a scroll. The scroll is apparently about a poisoning that occurred 10 years ago, involving the poisonous pufferfish. Dreaming of the day she gets to taste pufferfish, Gaoshan offers to take her to a stop, piquing Mao's interest. Gaoshan reveals that recently a colleague had asked for advice regarding a similar event that occurred recently, involving a high-ranking bureaucrat who ate a pufferfish and is now in a coma. Wondering if she should be hearing this top-secret information, Gaoshan is happy to share, trusting that Mao will keep everything a secret. Continuing, Mao double-checks that the bureaucrat was poisoned upon eating the flesh of the pufferfish, strange as the poison normally resides in its guts. Gaoshan corrects Mao, as there are cases of poisoning upon eating a pufferfish's flesh, making Mao reassess all the evidence. Mao notes how both cases of pufferfish poisoning had chefs that didn't intend on using the pufferfish, and both victims were food connoisseurs, both loving raw fish, especially pufferfish. In both cases, the guts of the pufferfish was found intact, and cooks stated that pufferfish was never served to the victims, but the symptoms of the victims matches those from the poison of a pufferfish. Since there is no way to conclude anything, Mao asks if Gaoshan can gather more information, watching as Gaoshan leaves. Ma Mao notes how it's common to have foods sit in the trash for a few days, meaning the cooks don't seem to be lying, but just then Jinshi appears, scaring Ma Mao. Jinshi asks what Ma Mao is thinking of, all whilst Surian dries Jinshi's hair, but needing space to think Ma Mao leaves. The next morning, Gaoshan hands Ma Mao one of the chef's recipe books, confirming that the instructions seem to be relatively normal. Gaoshan mentions how the dish containing fish and vegetables have different vinegar mixtures, but Ma Mao reasons the vinegar mixture changes depending on the type of fish and vegetable. Unable to figure out a solution, Ma Mao suddenly spots Jinshi curious about the case as well, forced to allow Jinshi to sit in on their conversation. Ma Mao learns that the bureaucrat poisoning happened a week ago, believing the vegetables used must have been radish or carrots, but upon hearing that the vegetable used was seaweed, Ma Mao smirks, asking to inspect the kitchen. Quietly walking through the palace, Ma Mao greets Basin, quietly following Basin into the carriage. Basin states that once they arrive at the kitchen, the servants will show Ma Mao around, impressing Ma Mao as Gaoshan was able to arrange a visit so quickly. Glancing at Basin, Ma Mao notes that Basin looks familiar, but brushes it aside. Upon arriving into the kitchen, Ma Mao gets to work inspecting the area, but just then an angry man marches into the kitchen, demanding that everyone leave. Intervening, Basin states that they've been granted permission to inspect the kitchen, calming down the man, who is revealed to be the poisoned bureaucrat's younger brother. Getting back to work, Ma Mao notices that the cooks washed all the tools and kept their kitchen clean, but spots several vases on the shelf. Upon opening a vase, Ma Mao smirks, learning that the vase stores seaweed that is the bureaucrat's favorite food item. With the younger brother nagging everyone to leave, Ma Mao gives in, heading back into the carriage with Basin. Basin asks why Ma Mao left so easily, but Ma Mao reveals she stole some of the seaweed, finding it weird that the seaweed is able to be preserved for so long. Ma Mao hints at the fact that the seaweed must be imported from somewhere south, asking Basin to investigate where the seaweed came from. A couple hours later, Basin reports to Jinshi and Ma Mao that the seaweed was indeed not the chef's regular seaweed, but the chef still used the imported seaweed, believing it isn't poisonous. Ma Mao reveals that poisonous foods can initially start out poisonous, but after some process can become edible. An example is that eels are originally poisonous, but after draining their blood or cooking them, will they become edible. Same case is true for this imported seaweed, as it needs to be soaked in lime water first. Having one pure batch of seaweed and one batch soaked in lime water, Ma Mao munches on the pure batch first, but Gaoshan and Jinshi feed Ma Mao the emetic agent to force Ma Mao to throw up. Moving on, Ma Mao states that the issue is the person that imported an irregular food item that no one is used to, meaning the poisonous seaweed was the culprit, but so is the person who imported the seaweed. Several hours later, Gaoshan reveals to Ma Mao that the younger brother of the bureaucrat was the one that imported the poisonous seaweed, revealed to have hated his older brother for getting all the attention. Ma Mao finds it weird that a man would have stumbled onto something so dangerous, but learns that the younger brother learned of the poisonous food through a mysterious man at a tavern. Back to house chores, Ma Mao is sad that she didn't get to try the poisonous seaweed, but is reminded of the insect mushrooms Jinshi had gifted her, wondering if she should make an alcohol or a pill. Just happy to have access to such rare items, Ma Mao gleefully greets Jinshi, but Jinshi is clearly weirded out, hitting his head on a pillar to calm down. Sitting down, Jinshi reveals that he is quite busy, but worst of all there is a man annoying him. Jinshi states that that man is a high-ranking military official that comes from a wealthy family, but is past his 40s and hasn't married yet. Jinshi states that the man is only interested in shogi and stepping in on other people's business, but hearing all of this Ma Mao realizes something, choosing to suppress her thoughts for now. The next day, Ma Mao is seen pondering on the strange man Jinshi told her about, but following Jinshi, we see that Lacan is the man giving Jinshi issues. Jinshi deduces that Lacan is wondering why Jinshi bought a courtesan like Ma Mao, but Lacan begins rambling on about a verdigris girl that he used to play go and shogi with. Curious as to who the girl was, Lacan ignores Jinshi's question, stating that he was tempted to purchase the verdigris courtesan, but other men outbid him. Lacan states that the courtesan treated everyone equally, revealing that he could never forget about her, uttering that he used a dirty trick to devalue the expensive courtesan. Before Lacan reveals what he did, Lacan asks about Ma Mao, having heard that Ma Mao is quite smart. Lacan mentions how he had a metalworker friend that passed away recently, adding that the metalworker had 3 kids but wasn't able to teach the kids their trade secrets before they passed away. Instead, the metalworker left behind a confusing will, asking if Ma Mao could help him solve the metalworker's secrets. With no other choice, Jinshi asks for more details, all whilst Ma Mao notices a storm is brewing. Later that day, Ma Mao sits before Jinshi, noting that Jinshi looks more bothered than usual. Apologizing for the inconvenience, Jinshi tells Ma Mao about a metalworker that had passed away without telling his sons his techniques that only the metalworker would know. Intrigued, Ma Mao continues listening, prompting Jinshi to reveal that the metalworker had 3 sons that were all the metalworker's apprentices as well. Apparently the metalworker had assigned his shack to the oldest son, the furniture to the second son and a fishbowl to the youngest. Additionally, there was a final note, asking all 3 sons to have a tea party, which both Ma Mao and Jinshi acknowledge as very strange. Jinshi mentions how the sons don't know what it means either, which makes Ma Mao try to find a link between the shack, furniture and fishbowl. Seeing as the value of item goes in descending order, Ma Mao asks more details on each item, but Jinshi admits that he has no idea, instead handing Ma Mao the address Lacan had provided, weirding Ma Mao out as it's like Jinshi read her mind. Asking for some time off, Ma Mao meets Basin, who once again instructs Ma Mao to behave and not step out of place. With Ma Mao and Basin keeping the chatting to a minimum, they head to the address, greeting the man, who shows Ma Mao and Basin around the home, telling Ma Mao that the owner used to collect strange materials. The man takes Ma Mao and Basin to the main house, revealing that the shack is used as a tea house for the craftsmen. Upon entering the main house, Ma Mao greets the 2 older brothers, realizing the man showing them around was the youngest brother, but both Ma Mao and Basin notice the room's furniture is arranged weirdly. Seeing everything placed in the middle of the room, Ma Mao notes how the table strangely brings everything together, but spots a nicely crafted chest of drawers. Inspecting the drawer, Ma Mao sees fancy metal work around the corners, 3 rows on the top drawer, a keyhole in the second row with a different metal, but also notices that the drawer is bolted onto the ground. Just then, the second son warns Ma Mao to not touch his furniture, prompting Ma Mao to promise not to touch anything. Upon seeing the calm expression on the eldest son, Ma Mao wonders why a window is placed so high up in the room, completely ruined by the chestnut tree obstructing the sun from getting in. Suddenly Ma Mao realizes that there is an imprint on the furniture, wondering what is missing. Just then, the eldest son demands to know if Basin and Ma Mao can truly figure out what their father left behind, but Ma Mao signals to Basin to ask for more information from the 3 brothers. The eldest son reiterates that he was left behind the shack, the second eldest was left the chest of drawers and the youngest was given a glass fishbowl, an item that Ma Mao knows is quite expensive, having expected it to be made of ceramic or wood. Speaking up, the second son berates his father for also leaving him a useless key that doesn't work on the keyhole in the second row nor any other keyholes on the drawer. Agreeing, the eldest son is annoyed he can't get the second son's chest out of his shack, but hearing his 2 older brothers talk bad about their father, the youngest son tries to interject. Sadly, the 2 older brothers talk over the youngest son, stating that the youngest is lucky to even be given an item that he can sell, but hearing all of this, Ma Mao can't help but feel sad for the youngest son. Suddenly, their mother appears, ordering the oldest sons to stop being negative, apologizing to Basin and Ma Mao, only to serve everyone some tea. Ma Mao realizes that the brothers have a set position in the room, perfectly allowing the sun to hit the chest in a few minutes, but Ma Mao notices that there is no sun damage on the chest. Realizing something, Ma Mao gets up and heads over to the drawer, noticing something is stuck in the drawer's keyhole. Seeing Basin following her around, Ma Mao realizes Basin looks like Gaoshan, but turns to the second brother, learning that the drawer used to open and that there is only one key. The second son also mentions that their fathers said whatever is inside will break if the sons force the lock open, giving Ma Mao enough pieces to begin thinking. Re-evaluating all the information the brothers had given her, Ma Mao stumbles onto a possible solution, asking the youngest if the fishbowl was originally placed near the window. The youngest son confirms that the fishbowl did indeed sit in front of the window, and even had a fish, as during winter the fish would be placed in front of the window to keep warm. Rushing off to fetch some water, filling the fishbowl with some liquids, only to turn the markings on the fishbowl inwards. Just then, a concentrated beam of light shines across the room, perfectly burning whatever is clogging the keyhole of the drawer. With the son now retreating behind the chestnut tree, as the beam of light disappears. Smelling something strange from the drawer keyhole, Mao asks the second son to open the chest drawer, confirming that the metalworker suffered from persistent anemia, stomachaches, nausea and depression. Taking out the middle drawer, Mao spots a key, realizing that the beam of light must have melted a piece of metal, and reshaped it into a usable key. Using the key to open the remaining drawers, Mao recognizes the material from when the youngest son gave her a tour, but the second and oldest son are complaining that they don't know what is happening. Mao sees that the youngest knows what one of the metals are, being a mixture of lead and tin, reminding Mao of a time when she tried to copy her father's medicine, but ended up poisoning herself. Mao wonders if the youngest son knows what his father was truly trying to convey, knowing that solder will melt faster than other metals, noticing that 2 of the 3 pieces of metal are lead and tin. Mao wonders if they need to mix the 3 metals together, wondering if the metal's melting points are quite low, also realizing if the shape of the drawers represent the ratio of each metal to be melted together. Annoyed at these random items, the second and oldest brother begin to storm off, but the youngest brother speaks up, stating that he believes their father wants the 3 of them to work together. The oldest brother reminds the youngest that their father only cared about the youngest, but the youngest reveals that their father always believed the eldest son to be reliable and accurate, whilst the second son was always good with people. With nothing else to do, Mao and Basin take their leave, but before Mao leaves, Mao tells the youngest son to visit her father if he ever gets ill. Several days later, Lacan thanks Jinshi for the intel, but Jinshi knows that Lacan already figured out what the metalworker wanted for their sons. Apparently the youngest son will take over their father's craftsmanship, whilst the oldest will focus on bookkeeping and the second son will focus on getting more clients. Jinshi wonders what Mao did to convince the brothers to begin working together, but can't help but wonder what Lacan is planning, as Lacan utters that talent shouldn't be hidden away. Jinshi actually agrees with Lacan's statement, noting how Lacan was able to find talent and climb the ranks. Changing topics, Jinshi asks to know the remaining part of the courtesan story, but Lacan utters that he should find out for himself. As Lacan leaves, Gaoshan personally asks Jinshi something, but as we cut to later that night, Jinshi is seen asking Mao to apply makeup on him. With Swearin leaving Mao and Jinshi alone, Mao notes how Jinshi doesn't need makeup to appear more beautiful, joking that Jinshi would topple a nation and seduce everyone if he were any more beautiful. Stating that he's serious, Jinshi asks Mao to make him less beautiful, asking Mao to give him freckles. Happy to help, Mao reveals that she mixes dried clay with oil, but as Jinshi tries mixing a mixture for his face, he learns that the lacquer chemical can permanently change his looks. Hearing that Jinshi wants to become a commoner, Mao says that she can help out, staying up late and creating multiple mixtures that can help with Jinshi's disguise. The next morning, Mao visits Jinshi, jealous to see that Jinshi is gorgeous, asking Jinshi once again if he wants to disguise his beauty. With Jinshi reiterating that he wants a disguise, Mao leans in close, sniffing Jinshi's hands, surprising Jinshi, Gaoshuna and Swearin. Mao states that Jinshi smells like expensive incense, and his outfits still imply that Jinshi is a noble of some sort. Surprised that Mao can detect his faint incense, Mao reveals that she is capable of detecting smells from medicinal and poisonous herbs. Additionally, Mao adds that at the brothel, customers are defined through their scents, with rich people being covered in multiple scents, but usually very sexually active. Whereas on the other hand, those with more potent smells are poor as they usually can't afford showers, therefore most new visitors are told to leave. Turning to Gaoshan, Mao asks Gaoshan for some clothes that haven't been washed yet. Next Mao mixes oil and salt to help roughen up Jinshi's luscious hair. As Mao applies the oil and salt to Jinshi's hair, Mao follows up by tying Jinshi's hair with a piece of throwaway cloth, reasoning that commoners use whatever they can. With Gaoshan returning with some dirty clothes, Ma Mao nonchalantly confirms that the clothes will work, asking Jinshi to take off his clothes. As Jinshi unveils his muscular body, Ma Mao is impressed at Jinshi's well-proportioned body, asking Suiren and Gaoshan to wrap Jinshi with some towels to make Jinshi's body less perfect. Having finished stuffing Jinshi's body, Ma Mao moves on to changing Jinshi's face, beginning to apply several dye mixtures to darken Jinshi's complexion. Inspecting Jinshi's face, Ma Mao is jealous at Jinshi's hairless and poreless face, wondering what Jinshi would look like with feminine makeup. Taking out the lipstick that Mei Mei gifted her, Ma Mao gives Jinshi some makeup, but seeing Jinshi's expression, everyone is glad that Jinshi's beauty is hidden from most people. Back on track, Ma Mao adds random blotches to Jinshi's face, along with eye bags and various moles. Additional blotches are added around Jinshi's body and under Jinshi's fingernails, but seeing Jinshi's masculine hands, Ma Mao realizes Jinshi has calloused hands, most likely from wielding a sword. Next, Ma Mao unveils a potent mixture, asking Jinshi to drink it in order to change his voice, as the drink is made from several irritants. Finally, Ma Mao asks Jinshi to stuff his cheeks with cotton to change his face structure, revealing Jinshi's new look, but Ma Mao is still amazed that Jinshi is quite good looking, even after all of her hard work. Cleaning up all her tools, Ma Mao mentions how she's heading home to visit her family, but gets scared seeing Gaoshan smiling. Gaoshan reveals that Jinshi will be accompanying her home, but utters that having Gaoshan or Suiren accompany Jinshi would make Jinshi stand out, asking Ma Mao to accompany Jinshi. Trying to come up with any excuse she can, Ma Mao is cornered by Suiren, offering to disguise Ma Mao herself. With no other choice, Jinshi and Ma Mao travel by carriage, with Ma Mao occasionally giving Jinshi pointers on how to look more common. With Ma Mao so gracefully dressed, Jinshi asks Ma Mao to call him Jenka, and Jinshi will address Ma Mao as lady, seeing as Suiren lent Ma Mao her daughter's prestigious dresses. With Gaoshan dropping the two off with a map, they both begin exploring the town, all whilst Ma Mao wonders if Jinshi could have blended with a woman's disguise. Asking where they're heading, Ma Mao learns that Jinshi wants to meet up with a colleague outside the pleasure district, but at the same time we see that Basin has been instructed to secretly watch over the two, but Jinshi has already found out Basin is following them. As Ma Mao and Jinshi continue through town, Ma Mao gets distracted by some lovely-looking vegetables, wondering if she can boil the vegetables with some chicken, but is reminded by Jinshi to keep up the disguise. Sad that she can't make a meal for her dad, Ma Mao notes how sad that a genius like her father doesn't care about money, probably able to earn a good living with his skills, but chooses to live in a shack. With Ma Mao deep in thought, Jinshi grows agitated, asking Ma Mao why she is so quiet. Ma Mao wonders if they should chat for a bit, but gets distracted by a familiar smell, running off to buy some chicken skewers. With Ma Mao graciously offering Jinshi a skewer, they both head into an alley, where Ma Mao begins savoring the nostalgic taste. With Jinshi joining in, he remarks that the skewers remind him of his time in camp, something Ma Mao knows only soldiers go through, wondering what Jinshi was like in the past. With Jinshi thoroughly enjoying the skewers and Baron jealously watching nearby, we cut back to Gaoshan, who has returned back to the palace, greeting Suiren who is on the floor. Suiren asks Gaoshan to not touch a suitcase, having covered it with a persimmon smell, which Gaoshan knows is filled with toys Jinshi used to play with. Suiren reminisces on how Jinshi would always cling to a single toy, never wanting to let it go, but is impressed that Jinshi has now found a new toy to obsess over. Seeing the sun setting, Jinshi spots Ma Mao picking up the pace, accusing Ma Mao of wanting to leave him, which Ma Mao secretly admits, wanting to head back to buy some vegetables and chicken. Getting serious, Jinshi asks if Ma Mao is happy in the palace, prompting Ma Mao to mention how she is definitely grateful to be given an interesting job, but Ma Mao still worries about her father, saying that he adopted her. Jinshi wonders what's so impressive about Ma Mao's father, letting Ma Mao brag about how her father had studied both Eastern and Western medicine, shocking Jinshi as only talented people get to study abroad. Since only people acknowledged by the empire get to study abroad, Jinshi wonders why Ma Mao's father works in the pleasure district, shocked to hear that Ma Mao's father was unlucky and became an eunuch. Realizing something, Jinshi wonders where he had heard of a talented apothecary turned eunuch before, but at the same time, Mamao checks their map, realizing their destination is a restaurant just up ahead. Seeing several ladies clinging onto wealthy men nearby, Mamao realizes why Jinshi needed a disguise, uttering that Jinshi could have just come to the pleasure district instead. Seeing as Mamao has caught on, Jinshi asks if Mamao can tell him the names of the frequent customer at the verdigris house, but upon hearing that Mamao can't tell him due to customer privacy, Jinshi boldly asks Mamao how someone can devalue a courtesan. Insulted by Jinshi's question, Mamao gives in, mentioning that there are multiple ways, since all girls are trained even when they are still servants. Afterwards, the girls are split into beautiful and non-beautiful, with the less fortunate having to sell their bodies. The beautiful and talented are given more opportunities to learn and grow, ultimately skyrocketing their value as a lady, until the day they are bought. Mamao reveals that a courtesan's value is based on their purity, meaning the less pure drop in value and a pregnancy will completely devalue a courtesan. Check out one of our other videos on the screen or in the info card above. Subscribe, like and comment.